Sorry I'm late. Okay. Hello everyone! Hopefully not for the first time here because we are continuing with certain things, so um having not seen the previous stream related to Artemis Fowl would be a really sad thing. Like reading a book from the middle. Anyways, small introduction here in order. My name is Lyss. I'm self-confined god who arrived from a different universe, the universe of my own, and I'm here to basically educate myself on how to make my own world better. And I'm doing that basically by participating in entertainment, learning how people use their imagination, reading books, playing games, watching stories, all this sort of thing. The different creative activities that you people participate in. So, the topic of the current stream, or I would rather say streaming series, is a book, Artemis Fowl, by Ian Colfer. Eoin Colfer. I still not sure how to pronounce it right. So, yeah. Today is the second part of the stream series of reading this book. During the first stream, we went through first 3 chapters, and currently we'll be starting reading the 4th one. If you didn't watch the first one, I highly suggest that you watch the stream from a week ago on my YouTube channel. There should still be a recording of that stream on Twitch as well, but it will eventually be gone, and there's not much I can do about it, sadly. So, yeah, if you haven't listened to me on the previous stream, I would advise first do that and then watch the stream that I will be recording today. If you watched the recording, then be my guest and stay with me as we read starting from chapter 4. Also today I'm a little better prepared. First thing, we now have stream alerts, so if there will be a new subscriber, I will be seeing it during the stream. And notification will show up, or at least it should. I'm not sure if it works. I guess we will find out, hopefully. Also, I have a moderately warm drink this time. Last time I really suffered, like... like, my throat wasn't very pleasant during the read, and I made it worse by reading a cold drink. By drinking a cold drink. What am I telling? What am I saying? So, yeah, today I'm having a drink as well, but it's now moderately warm, so I won't hurt my throat anymore, and hopefully should be fine for the entire duration of the stream. Maybe we will be able to stream longer because of that. I'm at least hoping that will be the case. I know that chapters will be getting only longer from now on, so last time we managed to get through first 3. I was thinking that maybe we will be able to cover 3 chapters every stream, but that might not be the case. So I'm hoping that I will have enough endurance for at least 2 more chapters today. I'm trying to not be too pessimistic. Anyways, let's proceed to the read. Also, if you feel like I'm misspelling things, or if music too loud, or if there is any issue that you will notice during the stream, please let me know in chat. I will try to basically put everything on pause and figure things out to hopefully fix them quickly for you. I'm still pretty much a green leaf, a beginner in this whole industry, so I'm prone to mistakes, but I'm willing to learn from them. But I need a little bit of help for that. Thanks for sticking until now, listening to my introduction and rambling. Anyways, let's proceed to the book. Chapter 4: Abduction. Artemis's main problem was one of location. How to locate a leprechaun. This was one sly bunch of fairies, hanging around for God knows how many millennia, and still not one photo, not one frame on video. Not even a Loch Ness type hoax. They weren't exactly a sociable group, and they were smart too. No one had ever got his hands on a fairy gold, but no one had ever had access to the book either. And puzzles were so simple when you had the key. Artemis had summoned the butlers to his study and spoke to them now from behind a mini lectern. There are certain rituals every fairy must complete to renew his magic, explained Artemis. Butler and Juliet nodded, as though this were a normal briefing. Artemis flicked through his card copy of the book and selected a passage. From the earth and power flows, given through courtesy, so thanks are owed. Pluck through the magic seed, where full moon, ancient oak, and twisted water meet, and bury it far from where it was found, so return your gift into the ground. Artemis closed the text. Do you see? Butler and Juliet kept nodding while still looking thoroughly mystified. Artemis sighed. The leprechaun is bound by certain rituals. Very specific rituals, I might add. We can use them to track one down. Juliet raised a hand, even though she herself was 4 years Artemis' senior. Yes? Well, the thing is, Artemis, she said, hesitantly twisting a strand of blonde hair in a way that several of the local lords considered extremely attractive. The bit about leprechauns. Artemis frowned. It was a bad sign. Your point, Juliet? Well, leprechauns. You know they're not real, don't you? Butler winced. It was his fault, really. He would never get around to filling in his sister on the mission parameters. Artemis scowled reprovingly at him. Butler hasn't already talked to you about this? No? Was he supposed to? Yes, he certainly was. Perhaps he thought you would laugh at him. Butler squirmed. That was exactly what he had thought. Juliet was the only person alive who laughed at him with embarrassing regularity. Most of our people did it once. Just once. Artemis cleared his throat. Let us proceed under the assumption that the fairy folk do exist, and that I am not a gibbering moron. Butler nodded weakly. Juliet was unconvinced. Very well. Now, as I was saying, the people have to fulfill a specific ritual to renew their powers. According to my interpretation, they must pick a seed from an ancient oak tree by the bend in the river, and they must do this during the full moon. The light began to dawn in Butler's eyes. So all we have to do is run a cross-reference through the weather satellites, which I already have. Believe it or not, there aren't that many ancient oaks left, if you take ancient to be 100 years plus. Then you factor in the river bend and full moon. There are precisely 129 sites to be served in this country. Butler grinned. Stake out. Now the master was talking his language. There are preparations to be made for our guest's arrival, said Artemis, handing a typewritten sheet of A4 to Joliet. These alterations must be made to the cellar. See to it, Joliet. To the letter. Yes, Artie. Artemis frowned, but only slightly. For reasons that he couldn't quite fathom, he didn't mind terribly when Joliet called him by the pet name his mother had for him. Butler scratched his chin thoughtfully. Artemis nods the gesture. Question? Well, Artemis. Despite in Ho Chi Minh City, Artemis nodded. I know. Why didn't we simply abduct her? Yes, sir. According to Chilean's Almanac of the People, a 7th century manuscript recovered from the lost city of Shishamo. Once a fairy has taken spirits with the mud people, that's us, by the way. They are forever dead to their brothers and sisters. So, there was no guarantee that particular fairy was worth even an ounce of gold. No, my old friend, we need a fresh blood. All clear? Butler nodded. Good. Now, there are several items you will need to procure for our moonlight chance. Butler scanned the sheet. Basic field equipment, a few eyebrow razors, nothing too puzzling until... Sunglasses? At night? When Artemis smiled, as he did now, one almost expected vampire fangs to spout from his gums. Yes, Butler. Sunglasses. Trust me. And Butler did. Implicitly. Holly activated a thermal coil in her suit and climbed to 13,000 feet. My hummingbird wings were top of the range. The battery readout showed 4 red bars, more than enough for a quick jaunt through mainland Europe and across the British Isles. Of course, the regulation said always travel over water if possible, but Holly could never resist knocking the snow cap from the highest Alp on her way past. The suit protected Holly from the worst of the elements, but she could still feel the chill sinking into her bones. The moon seemed huge from this altitude, the craters on its surface easily distinguishable. Tonight it was a perfect sphere, a magical full moon. Immigration would have their hands full, as thousands of surface-sick fairies were drawn irresistibly overground. A large percentage would make it, probably causing mayhem in the revelry. Earth's mantle was riddled with illegal tunnels, and it was impossible to police them all. Holly followed the Italian coast up to Monaco, and from there across the Alps to France. She loved flying. All fairies did. According to the book, they had once been equipped with wings of their own, but evolution had stripped them of this power. All but the sprites. One school of thought believe it. One school of thought believed that the people were descended from airborne dinosaurs, possibly pterodactyls. Much of the upper body skeletal structure was the same. This theory would certainly explain a tiny nub of bone on each shoulder blade. Holly toyed with the idea of visiting Disneyland Paris, where LAP had several undercover operatives stationed there, most of them working in a Snow White exhibit. It was one of the few places on Earth where people could pass unnoticed. But if some tourist got a photo of her and it ended up on the internet, Ruth would have her badge for sure. With a sigh of regret, she passed out the shower of multicolored fireworks below. Once across the channel, Holly flew low, skipping over the white crested waves. She called out to the dolphins and they rose to the surface, leaping from the water to match her pace. She could see the pollution in them, bleaching their skin white and giving them red sores on their backs. And although she smiled, her heart was breaking. Mud people had a lot to answer for. Finally, the coast loomed ahead of her. The old country, Rio, the land where time began. The most magical place of the planet. It was here 10,000 years ago that the ancient fairy race, the Dedanen, had battled against the demon Fomorians, carving the famous Giant's Causeway with the strength of their magical blasts. It was here that the Lia Fail stood, the rock at the center of the universe, where the fairy kings and later the human Erdtree were crowned. And it was also here, unfortunately, that the mud people were most in tune with magic, which resulted in a far higher people sighting rate that you got anywhere else on the planet. Thankfully, the rest of the world assumed that the Irish were crazy, and theory was the Irish itself did nothing to debunk. They had somehow got it into their heads that each fairy lugged around a pot of gold with him whenever he went. While it was true that LAP had a ransom fund, because of this officer's high-risk occupation, no human had ever taken a chunk of it yet. This didn't stop the Irish population in general from skulking around rainbows hoping to win the supernatural lottery. But in spite of all that, if there was one race the people felt an affinity for, it was the Irish. Perhaps it was their eccentricity, perhaps their dedication to the craic, as they called it. And if the people were actually related to humans, as our theory had it, odds are that the Emerald Isle was where it started. Holly punched up a map on her wrist locator and set it to sweep for magical hotspots. The best site would obviously be Tara near the Liafale, but on a night like tonight, every traditionalist fairy with an overground pass would be dancing around the holy scene so best to give it a miss. There was a secondary site not far from here, just off the southeast coast. Easy access from the air, but remote and desolate for landbound humans. Holly reined in the throttle and descended to 90 yards. She skipped over a bristling evergreen forest, emerging in a moonlit meadow. A silver thread of river bisected the field, and there, nesting in a fold of a minder loop, was the proud oak. Holly checked her locator for life forms. Once she judged the cow 2 fields over not to be afraid, she cut her engines and glided to the foot of the mighty three. "4 months of stakeout. Even Butler, The consummate professional was beginning to dread the long nights of dampness and insect bites. Thankfully, the moon was not full every night. It was always the same. They would crouch in the foil-lined blind in complete silence, Butler repeatedly checking his equipment, while Artemis stared unblinking through the eyes of the scope. At times like this, nature seemed deafening in their confined space. Butler longed to whistle, to make conversation, anything to break the unnatural silence, but Artemis's concentration was absolute. He would brook no interference or lapse of focus. This was business. Tonight, they were in the southeast, the most inaccessible site yet. Butler had been forced to make 3 trips to the jeep in order to hump the equipment across the stile, a bog, and 2 fields. His boots and trousers were ruined. And now he would have to sit in the blind with ditchwater soaking into the seat of his pants. Artemis had somehow contrived to remain spotless. The blind was ingenious in design, and interest had already been expressed in the manufacturing rights, mostly by military representatives, but Artemis had resolved to sell the patent to a sporting goods multinational. It was constructed of the elasticated foil polymer of the multi-hinged fiberglass skeleton. The foil, similar to that used by NASA, trapped the heat inside the structure while preventing the camouflage outside surface from overheating. This ensured that any animal sensitive to heat would be unaware of its presence. The hinges meant that the blind would move almost like a liquid, filling whatever depression it was dropped into. Instant shelter and vantage point. Just simply placed the velcroed bag in a hole and pulled the string. But all the cleverness in the world couldn't improve the atmosphere. Something was troubling Artemis. It was playing in a web of premature lines that spread from the corners of his deep blue eyes. After several nights of fruitless surveillance, Butler plucked up enough courage to ask. "Artemis," he began hesitantly, "I realize it's not my place, but I know there's something wrong, and if there's anything I can do to help..." Artemis didn't speak for several moments. As for those few moments, Butler saw the face of a young boy. The boy Artemis might have been. "It's my mother, Butler," he said at last. "I'm beginning to wonder if she will ever..." Then the proximity alarm flashed red. Holly paused. Holly hooked the wings over a low branch, unstrapping the helmet to give her ears some air. You had to be careful with alien ears. A few hours in the helmet and they started to flake. She gave the tips a massage. No dry skin there. That was because she had a daily measuring regime, not like some of the male LAP officers. When they took off their helmets, you would swear it had just started to snow. Holly paused for a minute to admire the view. Ireland certainly was picturesque. Even the mud people hadn't been able to destroy that. Not yet, anyways. Give them another century or two. The river was folding gently before her, like a silver snake, hissing as the water tumbled across the stony bed. The oak tree crackled overhead, its branches rasping together in the bracing breeze. Now to work. She could do the tourist thing all night once her business was complete. Acid. She needed acid. Holly bent to the ground, brushing the dried leaves and twigs from the clay's surface. Her fingers closed around a smooth acorn. That wasn't hard now, was it? She thought. All that remained for her to do was plant it somewhere else, and her powers would come rushing back. Butler checked the portal radar, muting the volume in case the equipment betrayed their position. The red arm swept to the screen with agonizing lethargy, and then flash! An upright figure by the tree. Too small for an adult, and wrong proportions for a child. He gave Artemis the thumbs up. Possible match. Artemis nodded, strapping mirrored sunglasses across his brow. Butler followed his lead, popping the cap on his weapon's straight scope. This was no ordinary dart rifle. It had been specially tucked from Kenyan ivory hunter and had the range and rapid-fire capacity of Kalashnikov. Butler had picked it up for a song from a government official after the ivory poacher's execution. They crept into the night with a practiced silence. The diminutive figure before them unhooked a contraption from around its shoulders and lifted a full-face helmet from a definitely non-human head. Butler wrapped the rifle strap twice around his wrist, pulling the stock into his shoulder. He activated the scope, and a red dot appeared in the center of the figure's back. Artemis nodded, and his manservant squeezed the trigger. In spite of 1,000,000,000 to 1 odds, it was at that precise moment that the figure bent low to the earth. Something whisked over Holly's head, something that glinted in the starlight. Holly had enough on-the-job experience to realize that was under fire, and immediately curled her alien frame into a ball, minimizing the target. She drew her pistol, rolling towards the shelter of a tree trunk. Her brain scrambled through possibilities. Who could be shooting at her, and why? Something was waiting beside the tree. Something roughly the size of a mountain, but considerably more mobile. Nice pea shooter, grinned the figure, smothering Holly's gun hand in a thumb-sized fist. Holly managed to extricate her finger a nanosecond before they snapped like a brittle spaghetti. I don't suppose you would consider peaceful surrender, said a cold voice behind her. Holly turned, elbows raised for combat. No, sighed the boy, melodramatically. I suppose not. Holly put on her best brave face. Stay back, human. You don't know what you're dealing with. The boy laughed. I believe, Fairy, that you are the one familiar with the facts. Fairy? He knew she was Fairy. I have magic, mudworm. Enough to turn you and your gorilla into pig droppings. The boy took a step closer. Brave wordsmith, but lies nonetheless. If, as you say, you had magic, you would have no doubt used it by now. No, I suspect that you have gone too long without the ritual and you are here to replenish your powers. Holly was dumbfounded. There was a human before her, casually spouting sacred secrets. This was disastrous, catastrophic. It could mean the end of generations of peace. If the humans were aware of fairy subculture, it was only a matter of time before the two species went to war. She must do something, and there's only one weapon left in her arsenal. The mesmer is the lowest form of magic and requires only a trickle of power. There are even certain humans with bent for that talent. It is within the ability of even the most drained fairy to put a complete mind kibosque on any human alive. Holly summoned the final dribble of magic from the base of her skull. Human, she intoned, her voice suddenly resonating with bass tones. Your will is mine. Artemis smiled, safe behind his mirrored lenses. Adapted, he said, and nodded curtly. Holly felt the dart puncture her soot-toughened material, depositing its slot of courier and succinil cord Sukini. What is this word? Succinil. Succiniclo. Succinic. Chloride-based tranquilizer into her shoulder. The world instinctively dissolved into a series of technicolor bubbles, and try as she might, Holly couldn't seem to hold on to more than one thought. And that what was. How did they know? It spiraled around her head as she sunk into unconsciousness. How did they know? How did they know? How did they... Artemis saw the pain in the creature's eyes as the hollow epidemic plunged into her body. And for a moment, he experienced misgivings. A female. He hadn't expected that. A female like Joliet or Mother. Then the moment passed and he was himself again. Good shooting, he said, bending to study the prisoner. Definitely a girl. Pretty too. In a pointy sort of way. Sir? Butler was pointing to the creature's helmet. It was half buried in a drift of leaves where the fairy had dropped it. A buzzing noise was coming from the crown. Artemis picked up the contraption by the straps, searching for the source. Ah, here we are. He plucked the viewcam from its slot, careful to point the lens away from Butler. Fairy technology, most impressive, he muttered, popping the battery from its groove. The camera whined and died. Nuclear power source, if I'm not mistaken. We must be careful not to underestimate our opponents. Butler nodded, sliding the captive into an oversized duffel bag. Something else to be logged across 2 fields, a bug, and a style. Whew, that was quite a mouthful. And, well, we didn't spend all that much time on the stream. So, a little bit of a short break before we start the next chapter. I'm kinda feeling bad for Holly, but I guess she should have been smarter than that. If it wasn't for her neglection, the situation could have been avoided completely. Although she did try to do her best to get any potential destructive results, even if she was at her worst, the chances of meeting with Artemis was actually quite low. Like, how many of the sites was there? Artemis said that there was precisely 129 sites to be surveyed in this country. So that means let's run a quick calculator. 129 divided by 100. There is 1.3% chance that she would have met Artemis. Actually, 128 divided by 100. Yeah, that's still about the same. So, if she didn't neglect the case of not having magic, she would have probably divided the odds by at least a half, because she would be able to be invincible. I mean, invisible. He wouldn't see her, or at least had a problem with seeing her, but he probably prepared for the fact that she might have been using the spell. Wait, I'm calculating something right. Wrong, I mean. 128%. No, that feels wrong. 100 divide 128. Oh, that's the correct number. 0.8% chance. If she was invincible, it would have been harder for him to find her, and if we divide it by 2, it would be roughly 0.4% chance for Artemis to succeed. But at the end of the day, he spent 4 months, so he spent 4 months, so that means he was 4 times out in the world looking for a fairy, for a replicant to meet, and eventually that stake was successful. He got that lucky 1% chance of meeting a fairy on the site. The one very specific fairy that was neglecting her ritual. I'd say that was quite an impressive luck. He staked all of his odds on luck, in a way, after a deep research, and, well, it all paid out, technically. Though, we will have to see. Alright, let's begin a new chapter. Chapter 5, Missing in Action. Commander Root was sucking on a particularly noxious fungus cigar. Several of the retrieval squad had nearly passed out in the shuttle. Even the stench from manacled trolls seemed mild in comparison. Of course, no one said anything. Their boss being touchier than a septic boil. Foley, on the other hand, delighted in antagonizing his superior. "None of you rancid stoggies in here, Commander," he brayed the moment Root made it back to Opes. "The computers don't like smoke." Root scowled, certain that Foley was making this up. Nevertheless, the commander was not prepared to risk a computer crash in the middle of an alert, and so doused his cigar in a coffee cup of a passing gremlin. "Now, Foley, what's this so-called alert? And it better be good this time." The centaur had a tendency to go completely hyper over trivialities. He would once gone to DEFCON 2 because his human satellite stations were out. "It's good, alright," Foley assured him. "Or should I say bad?" "Very bad." Root felt the ulcer in his gut began to bubble like a volcano. "How bad?" Foley punched up island over Eurostat. "We lost contact with Captain Short." "Why, I'm not surprised," groaned Root, burying his face in his hands. We had her all the way over the Alps. The Alps? She took a land route? Fully nodded. Against regulations, I know, but everyone does it. The commander agreed grudgingly. Who could resist a view like that? As a rookie, he'd been placed on a report himself for the exact offense. Okay, move on. Where did we lose her? Foley opened a viewer window on the screen. This is the feed from the Hollis helmet unit. Here we are over Disneyland Paris. The center pressed the fast forward. Now dolphins, blah blah blah, the Irish coastline, still no worries. Look, her locator comes into shot. Captain Short is scanning for magic hotspots. Site 57 shows up red, so she heads for that one. Why not Tara? Fully snorted. Tara? Every fairy hippie in the northern hemisphere will be dancing around the Lyafale at the full moon. There will be so many shields on, it'll look like the whole place is underwater. Fine, grunted Ruth through gritted teeth. Just get out of the buffet, will you? Alright, don't get your ears in a knot. Polly skipped several minutes of tape. Now, here's the interesting bit. Nice smooth landing. Hangs up the wings. Holly takes off the helmet. Against regulations, interjected Ruth. LAP officers must never remove the headgear above ground unless said headgear is defective. Completed Foley. Yes, Commander, we all know what the handbook says. But are you trying to tell me that you never sneaked a breath of air after a few hours in the sky? No, admitted Ruth. What are you, her fairy godmother or something? Get to the important part. Foley smirked behind his hand. Driving up Ruth's blood pressure was one of the few perks of his job. No one else would dare to do it. That was because everybody else was replaceable. Not Foley. He'd built the system from scratch, and if anyone else ever tried to put it up, a hidden virus would bring it crashing about their pointy ears. The important part. Here we are, look. Suddenly, Holly drops the helmet. It must lands down because we lose picture. We're still got sound though, so I will bring that up. Foley boosted the audio signal, filtering out background noise. Not great quality. The mic is in the camera, so that was knocked down in the dirt too. Nice pea shooter, said a voice. Definitely human. Deep too. That usually meant big. Ruth raised an eyebrow. Pea shooter? Slang for gun. Oh. Then the important simple statement struck him. She drew her weapon. Just wait, it gets worse. I don't suppose you would consider peaceful surrender, said the second voice. Just listening to it gave the commander shivers. No, continued the voice, I suppose not. This is bad, said Ruth, his face uncharacteristically pale. This feels like a setup. These two guns were waiting. How is that possible? Holly's voice came through the speaker, then typically brazen in the face of danger. The commander sighed. At least she was alive. It was more bad news, though, as the parties exchanged threats, and the second human displayed an uncommon knowledge of fairy affairs. He knows about the ritual! Here's the worst bit. Ruth's jaw dropped. The worst bit? Holly's voice again, this time layered with the mesmer. Now she has them, growled Ruth. But apparently not. Not only did the mesmer prove ineffective, but the mysterious pair seemed to find it amusing. That's all there is from Holly, nodded Foley. One of the mud people messed around with the camera for a bit and then we lose everything. Ruth rubbed the creases between his eyes. Not much to go on. No visual, not even a name. We can't really be 100% sure that we have a situation. You want proof? Asked Foley, rewinding the tape. I will give you proof. He ran the available video. Now watch this. I'm going to slow it right down. 1 frame per second. Ruth leaned in close to the screen, close enough to see the pixels. Captain Short comes in from landing. She takes off her helmet, bends down, presumably to pick up an icon, and there. Fully tapped the pause button, freezing the picture completely. See anything unusual? The commander felt his ulcer turn into overdrive. Something had appeared in the top right-hand corner of the frame. At first glance, it seemed like a shaft of light, but light from what? Or reflected from what? Can you blow that up? No problem. Foley cut the relevant area, increasing it by 400%. The light expanded to fill the screen. Oh no, breathed Ruth. There, on the monitor before them, in frozen suspension, was a hypodermic dart. There could be no doubt. Captain Holly Short was missing in action, most probably dead, but at the very least held captive by a hostile force. Tell me she still have the locator. Yep. Strong signal, moving north and about 80 clicks an hour. Root was silent for a moment, formulating his strategy. Go to full alert, and get retrieval out of their bunks and back down here. Prep them for a surface shot. I want full tactical and a couple of tetches. You go too, Floaty. We may have to stop time on this one. 10-4, Commander. You want recon on this? Root nodded. You bet. I will call in Captain Vane. He's our number one. Oh, no, said Root. For a job like this, we need our very best, and that's me. I'm reactivating myself. Foley was so amazed he couldn't even formulate a smart comment. You're... Yes, Foley. Don't act surprised. I have more successful recon under my belt than any officer in history. Plus, I did my basic training in Ireland, back in the Top Hat and the Shillelagh days. Yes, but that was 500 years ago, and you were no spring butt then. Not to put too fine a point on it. Ruth smiled dangerously. Don't worry, Foley. I'm still running red hot, and I will make up for my age with a really big gun. Now get a pot ready. I'm leaving on the next flare. Foley did what he was told without a single quip. When the commander got a glint in his eyes, you hoped to and kept your mouth shut. But there was another reason for Foley's silent compliance. It had just hit him that Foley could be in real trouble. Centaurs don't make many friends, and Foley was worried he might lose one of the few he had. Artemis had anticipated some technological advances, but nothing like the treasure trove of fairy hardware spread out on the 4-wheel drive dashboard. Impressive, he murmured. We could abort this mission right now and still make a fortune in patents. Artemis ran a handheld scanner bar over the unconscious elf wristband. He then fed the fairy characters into his PowerBook translator. This is a locator of some kind. No doubt these leprechauns comrades are tracking us right now. Butler swallowed. Right now, sir? It would seem so, or at any rate, we're tracking the locator. Artemis stopped speaking suddenly. His eyes lost focus at the electricity in his cranium sparked off another brainwave. Butler? The man felt his pulse quicken. He knew that tone. Something was afoot. Yes, Artemis? That Japanese whaler. The one seized by the port authorities. Is she still tied up at the docks? Butler nodded. Yes, I believe so. Artemis twirled the locator band and around his index finger. Good. Take us down there. I believe it's time to let our diminutive friends know exactly who we're dealing with. Root rubber-stamped his own reactivation with remarkable speed, very unusual of ALP upper management. Generally, it took months and several mind-crushingly dull meetings to approve any application to the recon squad. Luckily, Ruth had a bit of influence with the commander. It felt good to be back in a field uniform, and Ruth even managed to convince himself that the jumpsuit was not tighter and out in the middle than it used to be. The bulge, he rationalized, was caused by all the new equipment we jammed into these things. Personally, Ruth had no time for gadgetry. The only items that Commander was interested in were the wings on his back and the multi-phase, water-cooled, 3-barreled blaster strapped to his hip. The most powerful production handgun under the world. Old, to be sure, but it had seen Ruth through a dozen firefights and it made him feel like a field officer again. The nearest clutch to Holly's position was E1 Terra. Not exactly an ideal location for a stealth mission, but with barely 2 hours of moon time left, there was no time for overground jaunt. If there was to be any chance of sorting out this mess before sunrise, speed was of the essence. He commandeered the E1 shuttle for his team, bumping a tour group that had apparently been online for 2 years. Tough nuggets, Ruth growled at the holiday rep, and what's more, I'm shutting down all non-essential flights until the present crisis is past. And when it might be, squealed the irritated gnome, brandishing a notebook as though she was prepared to make a complaint of some kind. Ruth spat out the butt of his cigar, squashing it comprehensively beneath his boot heel. The symbolism was all too obvious. The clutches will be opened, madam, when I feel like it, growled her commander, and if you and your fluorescent uniform don't get out of my way, I will yank your operating license and have you thrown into the cells for obscuring an ALP officer. The holiday rep wilted before him and slunk back into the line, wishing her uniform wasn't quite so pink. Foley was waiting at the pods. Serious though the moment was, he couldn't resist an amused whinny at the sight of Ruth's belly wobbling ever so slightly in his clinging jumpsuit. Are you sure about this, Commander? Generally, we allow only one passenger per pod. What do you mean? Snapped Ruth. There is only one. Then he caught Foley a meaningful glance at his stomach. Oh, ha ha, very amusing. Keep it up, Foley. I have my limit, you know. But it was a hollow thread, and they both knew it. Not only had Foley built their communications network from scratch, but he was also a pioneer in the field of flare prediction. Without him, human technology could very easily catch up with a fairy brand. Ruth strapped himself into the pod. No half-century old crafts for the commander. This baby was fresh off the assembly line. All silver and shiny, with a new jagged fin stabilizers that were supposed to read the magma currents automatically. Foley's innovation, of course. For a century or so, his thought design had leaned towards the futuristic. Plenty of neon and rubber. Lately, however, his sensibilities had become more retrospective, replacing the gadgetry with walnut dashes and leather upholstery. Ruth found this old-style decor strangely comforting. He wrapped his finger around the joysticks and suddenly realized just how long it has been since he had ridden the hotspots. Foley noticed his discomfort. Don't worry, Chief, he said without the usual cynicism. It's like riding a unicorn. You never forget. Ruth grunted, unconvinced. Let's get the show on the road, he muttered, before I change my mind. Foley held the door across until the suction ring took hold, sealing the portal with a pneumatic hiss. Ruth's face took on a grim hue through the quartz pane. He didn't look too scary anymore. Quite the opposite, in fact. Artemis was performing a little field surgery on the fairy locator. It was no mean feat to alter some of the dimensions without destroying the mechanisms. The technologies were most definitely incompatible. Imagine trying to perform open-heart surgery with a sledgehammer. The first problem was opening the cursed thing. The screw heads defied both flathead and Phillips screwdrivers. Even Artemis's extensive set of Allen wrenches were unable to find patches in the tiny grooves. Think futuristic, Artemis told himself. Think advanced technology. It came to him after a few moments of silent contemplation. Magnetic bolts. Obviously, really, but how to construct a revolting magnetic field in the back of a four-wheel drive? Impossible! The only thing for it was to chase the screw around manually in a domestic magnet. Artemis hunted a small magnet from its niche in the toolbox and applied both balls to the tiny screws. The negative side wiggled then slightly. It was enough to give Artemis some room to maneuver with needle nose pliers, and he soon had the locator's panel disassembled before him. The circuitry was minute, and not a sight on a solder bead. They must use another form of binder. Perhaps if he had time, the principles of this device could be unraveled, but for now, he would have to improvise. He would have to rely on inattention of others, and if the people were anything like humans, they saw what they wanted to see. Artemis held the locator's face up to the cab light. It was translucent, slightly polarized, but good enough. He nudged a slew of tiny shimmering wires aside, inserted a buttonhole camera in the space. He secured the pea-sized transmitter with a dab of silicone. Crude, but effective. Hopefully. The magnetic screws refused to be coaxed back into the grooves without the proper tool, so Artemis was forced to glue them too. Messy, but it should suffice, provided the locator wasn't examined too closely, and if it was, well, he would only lose an advantage that he never expected to have in the first place. Butler knocked off his high beams and they entered the city limits. "Dock's coming up, Artemis," he said over his shoulder. "There's no bound to be a custom and excise crew around somewhere." Artemis nodded. It made sense. The port was a thriving artery of illegal activity. Over 50% of the country's contraband made it ashore somewhere along this half-mile stretch. A diversion then, Butler. 2 minutes are all I need. The manservant nodded thoughtfully. The usual? I don't see why not. Knock yourself out. Or rather, don't. Artemis blinked. That was the second joke in recent times. And his first allowed. Better take care. This is no time for frivolity. The dockers were rolling cigarettes. It wasn't easy with fingers the size of a lead bars, but they managed. And if a few strands of brown tobacco dropped on the rough flagstones, what of it? The pouches were available by the carton from a little man who didn't bother adding the government tax to his prices. Butler scrolled over to the man, his eyes shadowed beneath the brim of a watch cap. "Cold night," he said to the assembled group. No one replied. Policemen came in all shapes and sizes. The big stranger persevered. Even work is better than standing around on a frosty one like tonight. One of the workmen, a bit soft in the head, couldn't help nodding in agreement. A comrade drove an eyebrow into his ribs. "Still, though," continued a newcomer, "I don't suppose you girls ever did a decent day's work in your lives." Again, there was no reply, but this time it was because the dockers' mouths were hanging open in an amazement. "Yep, you're a pathetic-looking bunch, all right," went on Butler bitterly. "Oh, I doubt you would have passed as men during the famine. But by today's standards, you're a little more than a pack of bros-wearing weaklings." Said one of the dock hands. It was all he could manage. Butler raised an eyebrow. "Ag? Pathetic and inaccurate. Nice combination. Your mother must be so proud." The stranger had crossed a sacred line. He had mentioned the man's mother. He had mentioned the man's mothers. Nothing could get him out of the beating now, not even the fact that he was obviously a simpleton, albeit a simpleton with a good vocabulary. The men stamped out their cigarettes and spread slowly into a semicircle. It was 6 against 1. You had to feel sorry for them, but it wasn't finished yet. No, before we get into anything, ladies, no scratching, no spitting, and no tattling to mommy. It was the last straw. The men howled and attacked as one. If they had... Pardon me. If they had been paying any attention to their adversary in that moment before contact, they might have noticed that he shifted his weight to lower his center of gravity. They might have also seen that the hands he drew out of his pockets were the size and approximate shape of spades. But no one was paying attention to Butler, too busy watching their comrades, making sure they weren't alone in the assault. The thing about a diversion is that it has to be diverting. Big. Crude. Not Butler's style at all. He would have preferred to take those gentlemen out for 500 feet with a dart rifle. Failing that, if contact was absolutely necessary, a series of thumb jabs to a nerve clusters and the base of the neck would be his chosen modus operandi. Quiet as a whisper, but that would be defeating the purpose of the exercise. And so Butler went against his training, screaming like a demon and utilizing the most vulgar combat actions. Vulgar they may have been, but that's not to say that they weren't effective. Perhaps a Shaolin priest would have anticipated some of the more exaggerated movements, but these men were hardly trained adversaries. In fairness, they weren't even completely sober. Butler dropped the first with a roundhouse punch. 2 more had their heads clapped together, cartoon style. The fourth was, to Butler's eternal shame, dispatched with a spinning kick. But the most strenuous was saved for the last pair. The man rolled onto his back, cuffed them by the collars of their donkey jackets, and flipped them into a Dublin harbor. Big splashes. Plenty of waning. Perfect. 2 headlights poked from the black shadow of a cargo container, and the government saloon stretched around the quay. As anticipated, a customs and excise team on stakeout. Butler grinned with grim satisfaction and ducked around the corner. He was long gone before the agent had flipped their badges to begin inquiries. Not that the interrogation would yield much. Big as a house was hardly an adequate description to track him down. By the time Butler reached the car, Artemis had already returned from his mission. "Well done, old friend," he commanded, "although I'm certain your martial arts sensei is turning in his grave. A spinning kick? How could you?" Butler bit his tongue, reversing the 4-wheel drive of the wooden works. As they crossed the overpass, he couldn't resist glancing down at the chaos he had created. The government men were hauling a sudden docker from the polluted waters. Artemis had needed this diversion for something, but Butler knew there was no point in asking what. His employer did not share his plans with anyone until he thought the time was right. And if Artemis Fowl thought the time was right, then it usually was. Root emerged, shaken from the pot. He didn't remember it being like this in his time, although, truth be told, it had probably been an awful lot worse. Back in the Shillilac days, there were no fancy polymer harnesses, no after-thrusters, and certainly no external monitors. It was just gut instinct and a touch of enhancement. In some ways, Root preferred it like that. Science was taking the magic out of everything. He stumbled down the tunnel into the terminal. As the number 1 preferred destination, Tara had a fully fledged passenger lounge. 6 shuttles a week came in from Heaven City alone. Not on the flares, of course. Being tourists didn't likely adjusted around quite as much, unless of course they were on an illegal jaunt to Disneyland. The ferry fort was crammed with full moon overnighters complaining about the shuttle suspensions. A bleached sprite was sheltering behind her ticket desk, besieged by angry gremlins. "There's no point hexing me," squealed the sprite. "Where's the elf you want right there?" She pointed a quivering green finger at the approaching commander. The gremlin mob turned to Root, and then they saw the triple-barreled pistol on his hip. They kept right on turning. Root grabbed his microphone from behind the desk and hauled it out of the extent of its cable. "Now hear this," he growled, his gravely tones echoing around the terminal. "This is Commander Root from the LAP. We have a serious situation above ground, and I would appreciate cooperation from all you civilians. First, I would like you all to stop your yapping so I can hear myself think." Root paused to make certain his wishes were being respected. They were. "Secondly, I would like every single one of you, including those squalling infants, to sit down on the courtesy benches until I have gone off my way. Then you can get back to gripping or stuffing your faces, or whatever it is civilians do." No one had ever accused Root of politics correctness. No one was ever likely to either. "And I want whoever's in charge to get over here. Now!" Root tossed the stand onto the deck. Root tossed the stand onto the desk. A blare of whistling feedback grunted on every eardrum in the building. Within a fraction of a second, an out-of-breath elf-goblin hybrid was bobbing at his elbow. "Anything we can do, Commander?" Root nodded, twisting his thick cigar into the hole beneath his nose. "I want you to open a tunnel straight through this place. I don't want to be barred by custom or immigration. Start moving everybody below after my boys get here." The shuttle port director swallowed. "Everybody?" "Yes. That includes terminal personnel. And take everything you can carry. Full evacuation." He stopped and glared into the director's mouth eyes. "This is not a drill." "You mean yes," said Root, continuing down the access ramp. "The mod people have committed an overly hostile act. Who knows where this is going?" The elf goblin combo watched as Root disappeared in a cloud of cigar smoke. An overly hostile act? It could mean war. He punched in his accountant's number on his mobile. "Bark? Yes. This is Nimbus. I want you to sell all my shares in the shuttle port. Yes, all of them. I have a hunch the price is about to take a severe dive." Captain Holly Short felt as though a sucker's slug was driving her brain out through her earhole. She tried to figure out what could possibly have caused such agony, but her faculties didn't stretch to memory just yet. Breathing and lying down were about all she could manage. Time to attempt a word, something short and pertinent. Help, she decided, would be the one to go for. She took a trembling breath and opened her mouth. Said her treacherous lips. Not good. Incomprehensive, even by a drunken gnome standards. What was going on here? She was flat on her back with no more strength in her body than a damp tunnel root. What could have done this to her? Holly concentrated, skirting the edge of blinding pain. The troll? Was that it? Had the troll mauled her in that restaurant? That would explain a lot, but no, she seemed to remember something about the old country and the ritual, and there was something digging into her ankle. Hello? A voice. Not hers. Not even Elfin. You're awake then. One of the European languages. Latin. No, English. She was in England? I thought that might have killed you. Aliens' insides are different from ours. I saw that on television. Gibberish. Aliens' insides. What was the creature talking about? You look fit. Like Muchacha Maria. She's a Mexican midget wrestler. Holly groaned. Her gift of tongues must be on the blink. Time to see exactly what kind of craziness she was dealing with here. Focusing all her strength at the front of her head, Holly cracked open one eye. She closed it again almost immediately. There appeared to be a giant blonde fly staring down at her. "Don't be scared," said the fly. "Just sunglasses." Holly opened both eyes this time. The creature was tapping a silver eye. No, not an eye. A lens. A mirrored lens. Like the lenses worn by the other two. It all came back in a jolt, rushing to fill the hole in her memory like a combination lock clicking into place. She had been abducted by two humans during the ritual. Two humans with an extraordinary knowledge of fairy affairs. Holly tried speaking again. Where am I?" The human giggled delightedly, clapping her hands together. Holly noticed her nails, long and painted. "You can speak English. What sort of accent is that?" "Sounds like a little bit of everything." Holly frowned. The girl's voice was corkscrewing right to the middle of her headache. She lifted her arm. No locator. "Where are my things?" The girl waggled her fingers and one might at naughty child. "Artemis had to take your little gun away, and all those other toys. Couldn't have you hurting yourself." Artemis Fowl. This was all his idea. Everything is always his idea." Holly frowned. Artemis Fowl. For some reason, even the name made her shiver. It was a bad omen. Fairy intuition was never wrong. "We will come for me, you know," she said, the voice rasping through dry lips. "You don't know what you're done." The girl frowned. "You're absolutely right. I have no clue what's going on. So there's no future in trying to psych me out." Holly frowned. It was obviously pointless playing mind games with this human. The mesmer was her only hope, but that couldn't penetrate reflective surfaces. How the devil did these humans know that? That could be worked out later. For now, she had to figure a way to separate this vicious girl from her mirrored sunglasses. "You are pretty human," she said, voice dripping with honeyed flattery. "Why, thank you." Holly. "Why, thank you, Holly. I was a local paper once. I won a competition. Miss Sugar Beet Fair 1999. I knew it. Natural beauty. I'll bet your eyes are spectacular." "So everyone tells me," Juliet nodded. "I just like clock springs." Holly said it. If only I could see them. "Why ever not?" Juliet's fingers curled around the glassed stem. Then she hesitated. "Maybe I shouldn't." "Why not? Just for a second." "I don't know. Artemis told me never to take these off." "He would never know." Juliet pointed to a view cam mounted on the wall. "Oh, he would find out. Artemis find out about everything." She leaned in close to the fairy. "Sometimes I think I can see inside my head too." Holly frowned, foiled again by this Artemis creature. "Come on, 1 second. What harm could I do?" Juliet pretended to think about. None, I suppose. Unless, of course, you're hoping to nail me with the mesmer. Just how stupid do you think I am?" "I have no idea," said Holly, her tone to get more serious. "Why don't I get up, knock you out, and take the stupid glasses off?" Juliet lighted delightedly, and if this was the most ridiculous thing she had ever heard. "Good one, fairy girl." "I'm dead serious, human." "Well, if you're serious," sighed Juliet, reaching a delicate finger behind her lenses to wipe away a tear. "2 reasons. 1, Artemis said that while you're in a human dwelling, you have to do what we want. And I want you to stay on that coat." Holly closed her eyes. Right again. Where did this group get their information? And 2. Judith smiled again, but this time there was a hint of her brow and dust teeth. 2, because I went through the same training as Butler, and I've been trying for somebody to practice my pile driver on. We will see about that, human thought, Collie. Captain Short wasn't 100% yet, and there was also the small matter of the things digging into her ankle. She thought she knew what it could be, and if she was right, then it could be the beginning of a plan. Commander Root had Holly's locator frequency keyed into his helmet face screen. It took Root longer than expected to reach Dublin. The modern rings were more complicated than he was used to. Plus, he would neglect to take refresher courses. At the right attitude, he could almost superimpose a luminous map of his visor over the actual Dublin street below him. Almost. Folly, you pompous centaur, he barked into his mouthpiece. Problem, bossman? Came the tinny reply. Problem? You can say that again. Where was the last time you updated the Dublin files? Root could hear sucking noises in his ear. It sounded as though Foley was having lunch. Sorry, Commander, just finished off this carrot. Dublin, let's see. 1875. I thought so. This place is completely different. The humans have even managed to change the shape of the coastline. Foley was silent for a moment. Root just could imagine him wrestling with the problem. The center did not like to be told that any part of his system was out of date. Okay, he said at last, here's what I'm going to do. We have a scope on a satellite TV bird with a footprint in Ireland. I see, Mother Root, which was basically a lie. I'm going to email last week's sweep direct to your visor. Luckily, there's a video card in all the new helmets. Luckily. The tricky bit will be to coordinate your flight pattern with the video feed. Not had enough. How long, Foley? 2 minutes, give or take. Give or take what? About 10 years if my calculations are off. That would better not be off then. I will hover until we know. 124 seconds later, Root's black and white blueprints faded out to be replaced by full color daylight imaging. Then Root moved, it moved, and Holly's locator beacon dot moved too. Impressive, said Root. What was that, Commander? I said impressive, shouted Root. No need to get a swelled head. The commander heard the sound of a room full of laughter and realized the Foley had him on the speaker. Everyone had heard him complimenting the centaur's work. There had been no talking to him for at least a month, but it was worth it. The video he was receiving now was bang up to date. If Captain Short had been held in a building, the computer would have been able to give him a 3D blueprint instantaneously. It was foolproof. Except Foley? The beacon's gone offshore. What's going on? Both our ships, I would say at a guess. Root cussed himself for not thinking of it. They would be having a big laugh in the situation room. Of course it was a ship. Root dropped down a few hundred feet until its shadowy outline loomed through the mist. A whaler by the looks of it. Technology may have changed over the centuries, but there was still nothing like a harpoon to slaughter the world's largest mammal. Captain Short is in there somewhere, Foley, below decks. What can you give me? Nothing, sir. It's not a permanent fixture. By the time we run down her registration, it would be way too late. What about thermal imaging? No, Commander. The hull must be at least 50 years old. Very high lead content. We can't even penetrate the first layer. I'm afraid you're on your own. Root shook his head. After all the billions we poured into your department. Remind me to slash your budget when I get back. Yes, sir, came the reply, sullen for once. Foley did not like the budget jokes. Just have the retrieval squad on full alert. I may need them at moment's notice. I will, sir. You'd better. Over and out. Root was on his own. Truth be told, that was the way he liked it. No signs, no uppity Santa whining into his ear. Just a fairy, his wits, and maybe a touch of magic. Root tilted his polymer wings, hugging the underside of Fogbank. There was no need to be careful. With his shield activated, he was invisible to the human eye. Even on stealth-sensitive radar, he would be no more than a barely perceptible distortion. The commander swooped low to the gunwales. It was ugly crowd, this one. The smell of death and pain lingered in the blood-swaddled desk. Many noble creatures have died here. Died and been dissected for a few bars of soap and some heating oil. Root shook his head. Humans were such barbarians. Holly's beeper was flashing urgently now. She was close by. Very close. Somewhere within a 200-foot radius was the hopeful, still-breathing form of Captain Short, but without blueprints he would have to navigate the bellow of the ship unaided. Root aligned it gently on the desk. Root aligned it gently on the deck, his boots adhering slightly to the mixture of dried soap and bubbler coating the street surface. The craft appeared to be human popped up, and the craft appeared to be deserted. No sentry on the gangplank, no bosun on the bridge, not a light anywhere. Still, no reason to abandon caution. Root knew from bitter experience that humans popped up when you least expected them. Once when he was helping the retrieval boys scrape some pod breakage off a tunnel wall, we were spotted by a group of potholing humans. What a mess that had been. Mass hysteria, high-speed chases, group mind wipes, the whole 9 yards. Root shrugged. Nights like that could put decades on a fairy. Keeping himself fully shielded, the commander showed his wings in their stealth, advancing on foot across the deck. There were no other life forms showing up on his screen, but, like Foley said, the hull was a high lead content. Even the paint was lead-based. The entire boat was a floating eco-hazard. The point being that there could be an entire battalion of stormtroopers concealed below deck, and his helmet cam would never pick them up. Very reassuring. Even Holly's beacon was a few shades below par, and that had a micronuclear battery sending out the pulses. Red didn't like this. Not one bit. Keep calm, he derided himself. You're shielded. There's not a human alive that can see you now. Root hauled open the first hatch. It swung easily enough. The commander sniffed. The mud people had greased the fringes with whale blubber. Was there no end to their depravity? The corridor was steeped in vicious darkness, so Root flicked down his infrared filter. Okay, so sometimes technology did come in handy, but he wouldn't be telling Foley that. The maze of pipes and grilling before him was immediately illuminated with a natural red light. Minutes later, he was regretting even thinking something nice about the Centaur's technology. The infrared filter was messing with his depth perception, and he would be wagged his cat on 2 protruding U-bends so far. Still, no sign of life, human or fairy. Plenty of animal. Mostly rodents. And when you're just stopping 3 feet in height yourself, a good-sized rat can be a real threat, especially since rats are one of the few breeds that can't see straight through a fairy shields. Root unstrapped his blaster and set it on level 3, or medium rare, as the elves in the locker room called it. He sent one of the rats scurrying away with a smoking behind and a warning to the rest. Nothing fatal, but just enough to teach him not to look sideways at a fairy in a hurry again. Ruth picked up his pace. This place was ideal for an ambush. He was virtually blind with his back on the He was virtually blind with his back to the only exit. A recon nightmare. If one of his own men had pulled a stunt like this, he could have been strapped for it. But desperate times required judicious risk-taking. That was the essence of command. He ignored several doors to either side, following the beacon. 10 feet now. A steel hedge sealed the corridor, and Captain Short, or her corpse, lay on the overside of it. Ruth put his shoulder on the door. It swung open without protest. Bad news. If a live creature were being held captive, the hatch would have been locked. The commander flicked the blaster power level to 5 and advanced through the hole. His weapon hummed softly. There was enough power on tap now to vaporize a bull elephant with a single blast. No sign of Holly. No sign of anything much. He was in a refrigerated storage bay. Glittering stalactites hung from a maze of piping. Rude breath fainted before him in icy clouds. How would that look to a human? Disembodied breathing. Ah, said a familiar voice. We have a visitor. Rude dropped to one knee, leveling the handgun at the voice's source. Come to rescue your missing officer, no doubt. The commander blinked a bed of sweat from his eyes. Sweat? At this temperature? Well, I'm afraid you'll come to the wrong place. The voice was stingy, artificial, amplified. Rudd checked his locator for life signs. There were none. Not in his chamber, at any rate. He was being monitored somehow. Was there a camera here somewhere concealing in a maze of overbed pumping that could penetrate the fairy shield? Where are you? Show yourself! The human chuckled. It echoed unnaturally around the west hold. Oh no, not yet, my fairy friend. But soon enough. And believe me, when I do, you will wish I hadn't. Ruth followed the voice. Keep the human talking. What do you want? What do I want? Again, you will know soon enough. There was a low crate in the center of the hold. On it sat an attaché case. The case was open. Why bring me here at all? Ruth poked the case with his pistol. Nothing happened. I brought you here for a demonstration. The commander leaned up over the open container. Inside, in snook foam packing, were a flat vacuum-packed package and a triple-band VHF transmitter. Resting on the top was Holly's locator. Ruth groaned. Holly wouldn't willingly give up her equipment. No LAP officer would. What sort of demonstration? You demanded, freak. Again, that cold chuckle. A demonstration of my utter commitment to my goals. Ruth should have started to worry about his own health then, but he was too busy worrying about Holly's. If you were harmed, one sip of my officer's pointy ears. Your officer? Oh, we have management. How privileged. All the better to make my point. Alarm bells went off in Ruth's head. Your point? The voice emanated from the aluminium speaker grid that was as serious as nuclear winter. My point, little fairy man, is that I am not someone to be trifled with. Now, if you would please observe the package. The commander duly observed. It was nondescript enough shape, flat, like a slab of putty or... Oh no. Beneath the cylinder, a red light flicked on. Fly, little fairy, said the voice, and tell your friends Artemis Fowl II says hello. Beside the red light, green symbol began to click through the routine. Ruth recognized them from his human studies class back in the academy. They were numbers, going backwards. A countdown. Darwet! Growled Root. There is no point translating the word as it would have to be censored. He turned and fled up the corridor, Artemis Fowl mocking tones carrying down the mental funnel. 3, said humans. 2, Jarvet! Repeated Root. The corridor seemed much longer now. A silver of starry sky peeked through a wedge of open door. Root activated his wings. This would take some fancy flying. The hummingbird's span was barely narrower than the ship's corridor. 1? Sparks flew at the electronic wings, scraped a protruding pipe. Root cartwheeled, writing himself a Mach 1. 0, said the voice. Boom! Inside the vacuum-packed package, a detonator sparked, igniting a kilogram of pure Semtex. The white-hot reaction devoured the surrounding oxygen in a nanosecond and surged down the path of the least resistance, which was, of course, immediately after LAP Commander Root. Root dropped his visor, opening the throttle to maximum. The door was just a few feet away now. It was just a matter of what reached it first, the fairy or the fireball. He made it. Barely. He could feel the explosion rattling his torso as he threw himself into the reverse loop. Flames lashed onto his jumpsuit, licking along his legs. Groot continued his maneuvers, crashing directly into the icy water. He broke the surface, swearing. Above him, the whaler had been totally consumed by noxious flames. Commander, came a voice in his earpiece. It was Foley. He was back in range. Commander! Commander, what's your status? Root lifted free of the water's grip. My status, Foley, is extremely annoyed. Get on your computer. I want to know everything there is to know about one Artemis Fowl, and I want to know it before I get back to base. Yes, sir, Commander, right away. No wisecrack. Even Foley realized that this was not the time. Root hovered at the 300 yards. Below him, the brazen whaler drew emergency vehicle-like mouse to a light. He dusted charred threads from his elbows. There will be a reckoning for this Artemis Fowl, he vowed. Count on it. Whew. Okay, that was a long chapter, but it's over, and we are getting close to chapter 6. My nose feels itchy. Okay. Well, Artemis continues to show his cunning, I guess. He made a lot of wise decisions there. He made a cunning trap, he made a point, and he successfully trapped the fairy. Holly is pretty much on the hold, though it seems like she is already looking for some way to get out of her confinement. Potentially a small mistake. But who knows? Who knows? One sad thing is that, I guess, for Artemis is that he had to say goodbye to Transmitter. That was like... from the description, it seems like a small watch PC. It definitely could do a lot aside from just tracking your location, like GPS. And considering the time when the story was written, for Artemis, that could have been a priceless technology. Like, think about it. First and most compact and advanced watch phone in the beginning of 2000s. Huh? And probably Apple because Artemis was using Macs back when they were called Macintosh. Old, really old times. By modern standards, almost ancient. He would have an advancement in technology of like probably 30 or 40 years ahead of his own time. How cool would be that? But well, he still has a helmet to play with, so I'm pretty confident we will see that in the future. Alright, now to extend a little break, I will stay silent for a bit to rest my jaw. I'm kinda enjoying the streams, in all honest, because I have to talk a lot, and that's basically a practice. Obviously, I'm making mistakes, and I know that, but those mistakes will stick in my head, and I will be able to improve my speech, and this will be helpful in future streams. Even if these streams aren't exactly popular and not a lot of people visiting them. Also, looking at the time of the stream, I guess we still can manage another chapter. And so, although I have a feeling that it might be even longer than the previous one. Okay. Chapter 6. Sight. Artemis leaned back in the study's leather swivel chair, smiling over stippled fingers. Perfect. That little explosion should cure the spheres of the cavalier attitude. Plus, there was one less whaler in the world. Artemis Fowl did not like whalers. They were less objectionable ways to produce oil byproducts. The pinhole camera concealed in the locator had worked perfectly. With its high-resolution images, he had picked out the very telltale breath crystals. Artemis consulted the basement surveillance monitor. His captive was sitting on a cot now, head in heads. Artemis frowned. He hadn't expected the fairy to appear so human. Until now, they had merely been quarry, animals to be hunted. But now, seeing one like this, in obvious discomfort, it changed things. Artemis put the computer to sleep and crossed to the main doors. Time for a little chat with their guest. Just as his fingers aligned with the brass handles, the door flew open before him. Juliet appeared in the doorway, cheeks flushed from haste. Artemis, your mother, she... Artemis felt a lead ball drop in his stomach. Yes, well, she says, Artemis, that you're... Yes, Juliet, for heaven's sakes, what is it? Juliet placed both hands over her mouth, composing herself. After several seconds, she parted spangled nails, speaking through her fingers. "It's your father, Sir Artemis Sr. Madame Fowl says he's come back." For a split second, Artemis could have sworn his heart stopped. Father? Back? Was it possible? Of course, he'd have always believed his father was alive, but lately, since he'd catched this fairy scheme, it was almost as if his father had shifted to the back of his mind. Artemis felt guilt churn in his stomach. He had given up on his own father. "Do you see him, Juliet? With your own eyes?" The girl shook her head. "No," Artemis said. "I just heard voices in the bedroom. But she won't let me through the door. Not for anything, not even with a hot drink." Artemis calculated. They had returned barely an hour ago. His father could have slipped past Juliet. It was possible. Just possible. He glanced at his watch, synchronized the Greenwich Mean Time to constantly updated radio signals. 3 a.m. Time was ticking on. His entire plan depended on the fairies making their next move before daylight. Artemis started. He was doing it again, pushing family to one side. What was he becoming? His father was the priority here, not some money-making scheme. Juliet was still in the doorway, watching him with those enormous blue eyes. She was waiting for him to make a decision, as he always did, and for once there was indecision scrawled across his pale features. "Very well," he mumbled eventually. "I had better go up there immediately." Artemis brushed past the girl, taking the steps two at a time. His mother's room was 2 flights up, a coveted attic space. He hesitated at the door. What would he say if it was his father miraculously returned? What would he do? It was ridiculously detailish about it, impossible to predict. He knocked lightly. "Mother?" No response. But he thought he heard a giggle and was instantly transported into the past. Initially, this room had been his parents' lodge. Ware would sit on the chaise lounge for hours, tittering like school children, feeding the pigeons or watching the ships sailing past on Dublin Sound. Then Artemis Sr. had disappeared. Angeline Fowl had become more and more attached to the space, eventually refusing to leave altogether. "Mother? Are you alright?" Muffled voice from within. Conspirational whispers. "Mother? I'm coming in." "Wait a moment. Timmy, stop it, you beast. We have company." "Timmy?" Artemis's heart drummed like a snare drum in his chest. Timmy, her pet name for his father. Timmy and Artie, the 2 men in her life. He could wait no longer. Artemis burst through the double doors. His first impressions was of light. Mother had the lamps on, a good sign surely. Artemis knew where his mother would be. He knew exactly where to look, but he couldn't. What if... "Yes, can we help you?" Artemis turned, his eyes still downcast. "It's me." His mother laughed, airy and carefree. "I can see it's you, Papa. Can't you ever give your boy one night off? It is our honeymoon, after all." Artemis knew then. It was just an escalation of her madness. Papa? Angeline thought Artemis was his own grandfather, dead over 10 years. He raised his gaze slowly. His mother was seated on the chaise lounge, resplendent in her own wedding dress, face clumsy coated with makeup, but that wasn't the worst of it. Beside her was facsimile of his father, constructed from morning suit he'd worn on the glorious day of Christchurch Cathedral 14 years ago. The clothes were padded with tissue, and atop the dress shirt was a scuffed pillowcase with lipstick features. It was almost funny. Artemis chuckled back and sobbed, his hopes vanishing like a summer rainbow. "What did you say, Papa?" said Angelina deep bass, nodding the pillow like a veterinarian manipulating her dummy. "One night off to your boy, eh?" Artemis nodded. What else could he do? "One night then. Take tomorrow too. Be happy." Angeline's face radiated honest joy. She sprang from the couch, embracing her unrecognized son. "Thank you, Papa, thank you." Artemis returned the embrace, though it felt like cheating. "You're welcome, Angeline. Now I must be off. Business to attend to." His mother settled beside her imitation husband. "Yes, Papa. You go, don't worry. We can keep ourselves amused." Artemis left. He didn't look back. There were things to be done, fairies to be exhorted, and he had no time for his mother's fantasy world. Captain Holyshort was holding her head in her hands. One hand, to be precise. The other was scrabbling down the side of her boot, on the camera's blind side. In actuality, her head was crystal clear, but it would do no harm for the enemy to believe he's still out of action. Perhaps they would underestimate her, and that would be the last mistake they ever made. Holly's fingers crossed around the object that had been digging into her ankle. She knew immediately by its contours what was concealed there. The acorn. It must have slipped into her body during all the commotion by the oak. This could be a vital development. All she needed was a small patch of earth, then her powers would be restored. Holly glanced surreptitiously around the cell. Fresh concrete by the looks of it. Not a single crack or flaky corner. Nowhere to bury this secret weapon. Holly stood tentatively, trying out her legs for stability. Not too bad. A bit shaky around the knees, but otherwise sound enough. She crossed to the wall, pressing her cheek and palms to a smooth surface. The concrete was fresh alright, very recent. Still damp in patches. Obviously, her prison had been specially prepared. "Looking for something?" said a voice. A cold, breathless voice. Holly reared back from the wall. The human boy was standing not 2 feet from her, his eyes hidden behind mirrored glasses. He had entered the room without a sound. Extraordinary. "Sit, please." Holly did not want to sit, please. What she wanted to do was incapacitate the insolent pup with her elbow and use his miserable height for leverage. Artemis could see it in her eyes. It amused him. "Getting ideas, are we, Captain Short?" Holly bared her teeth. It was answer enough. "We are both fully aware of the rules here, Captain. This is my house. You must abide by my wishes. Your loves, not mine. Obviously, my wishes do not include bodily harm to myself or your attempts to leave this house." It hit Holly then. "How do you know your name? Your rank?" Artemis smiled, though there was no joy in it. "If you wear a name tag..." Holly hand unconsciously caught the silver tag on her seat, but that's written in Gnomish. I know. I happen to be fluent, as is everyone in my network. Holly was silent for a moment, processing this momentous revelation. "Foul," she said with feelings. "You have no idea what you've done. Bringing the worlds together like this could mean disaster for us all." Artemis shrugged. "I am not concerned with us all, just myself. And believe me, I shall be perfectly fine. Now, sit, please." Holly sat, never taking her hazel eye from the diminutive monster before her. "So, what is the master plan, Fowl? Let me guess. World domination?" "Nothing so melodramatic," chuckled Artemis. Just riches. A thief, spat Holly. You're just a thief! Annoyance flashed across Artemis' features, only to be replaced by his customary sardonic grin. Yes, a thief if you like. Hardly just a thief, though. The world's first cross-species thief. Captain Short snorted. First cross-species thief? What people have been stealing from us for millennia? Why do you think we live underground? True, but I will be the first to successfully separate a fairy from its gold. Gold? Gold? Human idiot. You don't honestly believe that crook of gold nonsense. Some things aren't true, you know. Holly threw her head back and laughed. Artemis checked his nails patiently, waiting for her to finish. When the gales had finally subsided, he shook his index finger. You are right to laugh, Captain Short. For a while there, I did believe it, all that under the rainbow crook of gold blaring me, but now I know better. Now I know about the hostage fund. Holly shrugged to keep her face under control. What hostage fund? Oh, come now, Captain. Why bother with the charade? You told me about it yourself. I told you? Stammered Holly. Ridiculous! Look at your arm. Holly rubbed up her right sleeve. There was a small cotton pad tapped to the vein. That's where we administered the sodium pentanol, commonly known as truth serum. You sang like a bird. Holly knew it was true. How else would he know? You're crazy! Artemis nodded indulgently. If I win, I'm a prodigy. If I lose, then I'm crazy. That's the way history is written. Of course, there had been no sodium pentanol, just a harmless prick with a sterilized needle. Artemis would not risk causing brain damage to his meal ticket, nor could he afford to reveal the book and the source of his information. Better to let the hostage believe that she had betrayed her own people. It would lower her morale, making her more susceptible to his mind games. Still, where else disrupted him? It was undeniably cruel. How far was he prepared to go for this gold? He didn't know, and wouldn't until the time came. Holly slumped, momentarily defeated by this latest development. She had talked, revealed sacred secrets. Even if she did manage to escape, she would be banished for some freezing tunnel under the Arctic Circle. This isn't over, Fowl, she said at least. We have powers you can't possibly know about. It would take days to describe them all. The infuriating boy laughed again. How long do you think you've been here? Holly groaned. She knew that was coming. A few hours? Artemis shook his head. 3 days, he lied. We've had you on a drip for over 60 hours, until you told us everything we needed to know. Even as the words came out, Artemis felt guilty. These mind games were having an obvious effect on Holly, destroying her from the inside out. Was there really a need for this? 3 days? You could have killed me! What kind of... And it was the speechless qualities that sent the doubt shooting through Artemis' brain. The fairy thought him so evil, she couldn't even find the words. Holly pulled herself together. Well then, Master Fowl, she spat, heavy on the contempt. If you know so much about us, when you know what happens when they locate me. Artemis nodded absently. Oh yes, I know. In fact, I'm counting on it. It was Holly's turn to grin. Oh really? Tell me, boy, have you ever met a troll? For the first time, the human confidence dropped a notch. No, never a troll. Holly showed more teeth. You will, Hal. You will, and I hope I'm there to see it. The LAP has established a Surface Ops HQ to E1 Tara. Well, said Root, slapping a paradermic gremlin who was applying burn salve to his forehead. Leave it. The magic will sort me out soon enough. Well, what? Replied Foley. Don't give me any of your lip today, Foley, because today is none of those. Oh, I'm so impressed with the pony's technology days. Tell me what you found on the human. Foley scowled, securing his foil hat between curled horns. He flipped the top of a wafer-thin laptop. I hacked into Interpol. Not too difficult, I can tell you. They might have as well put on a welcome mat. Rod drummed his fingers on the conference table. Get on with it. Right. File. 10 gigabyte file. In paper terms, that's half a library. The commander whistled. That's one was a human. Family, corrected Foley. The files have been subverting justice for generations. Racketeering, smuggling, armed robbery, mostly corporate crime last century. So, do we have a location? But that was an easy part. Fowl Manor, on a 200-acre estate on the outskirts of Dublin. Fowl Manor is only about 20 clicks from our current location. Root chewed his bottom lip. Only 20? That means we could make it before first light. Yes. Sort out this whole mess before it gets out of hand in the rays of the sun. The commander nodded. That was their first break. Fairies had not operated in natural light for centuries. Even then, they had lived above ground, but were essentially night creatures. The sun dulled their magic like bleaching a photograph. If they had to wait another day before sailing in a strike force, who knew what damage Fowl could achieve? It was then possible that this whole affair was media-oriented, and by tomorrow evening Captain Short's face would be on the cover of every publication on the planet. Rod shrugged. That would spell the end of everything unless the mud people had learned to coexist with other species. And if history had taught any lesson, it was the humans couldn't get along with anyone, even themselves. Right. Everyone lock and load. Brief flight pattern. Establish a perimeter inside the manor's ground. The retrieval squad wrote minutely timed affirmatives, coaxing as many metallic noises from their weapons as possible. Foley, round up the techies. Follow us in the shuttle, and bring the big dishes. We will shut down the entire estate, give ourselves a bit of breathing room. One thing, Commander, mused Foley. Yes, said Root impatiently. Why did this human tell us who he was? He must have known he would find him. Rod shrugged. Maybe he's not as clever as he thinks he is. No, I don't think that's it. I don't think that's it at all. I think he's been one step ahead of us all this whole time. And this is no different. I don't have for terrorizing now, Foley. First light is approaching. One more thing, Commander. Is it important? Yes, I think it is. Well? Foley tapped a key on his laptop, scrolling through Artemis' vital statistics. The criminal mastermind, the one behind this elaborate scheme. Yes, what about it? Foley looked up, an almost admiring look in his golden eyes. Well, he is only 12 years old. And that's young, even for a human. Rod snorted, jacking a new battery into his three-barreled blaster. Too much damn TV. Thinks he's Sherlock Holmes. That's Professor Moriarty, corrected Foley. Holmes, Moriarty, they both look the same with the flesh scratched off their skulls. And with that elegant parting response, Root followed his squad into the night air. The retrieval squad adopted the V-Goose formation with Root on point. They flew southwest, following the video feed emailed to their helmets. Foley had even marked Fowl Manor with a red dot. Idiot-proof, he'd muttered into his mouthpiece, just loud enough for a commander to hear him. The centerpiece of the Fowl estate had a renovated late medieval, early modern castle built by Lord Fowl in the 15th century. The Fowls had held on Fowl Manor over the years, surviving war, civil unrest, and several tax audits. Artemis did not intend to be the one to lose it. The estate was ringed by a 10-foot crenellated stone wall, complete with original guard towers and ways. The retrieval squad put down just inside the boundary and began an immediate scan for possible hostiles. 50 feet apart, instructed Root. Sweep the area. Check in every 60 seconds. Clear? Retrieval nodded. Of course it was clear. They were professionals. Lieutenant Gudjon, Retrieval Squad's leader, climbed the guard tower. You know what we should do, Julius? He and Root had been in the academy together, brought up in the same tunnel. Gudjon was one of perhaps 5 fairies who called Root by his first name. I know what you think we should do. We should blast the whole place. What a surprise. The cleanest way. 1 blue rinse and our losses are minimum. Blue rinse was the slang term for the devastating biological bomb used on a rare occasions by the Force. The clever thing about a biobomb was that it's destroyed on living tissue. The landscapes was unscathed. The minimum loss you're talking about happens to be one of my officers. Oh, yes, toned Sir John, a female recon officer. The test case. Well, I don't think you will have any problem justifying a tactical solution. Root's face on a familiar purple hair. The best thing you can do right now is stay out of my way, or else I may be forced to ram that blue rinse straight into the morass you call a brain. Gudjon was unperturbed. Insulting me doesn't change the facts, Julius. You know what the book says. We cannot, under any circumstances, allow the lower elements to be compromised. 1 time stop is all you get, after all. But the lieutenant didn't finish his statement. He didn't have to. I know what the book says. Snapped Root. I just wish you weren't so gung-ho about it. If I didn't know you better, I would say there was some human blood in you. There's no call for that. Pouted Gudjon. I'm only doing my job. Point taken, considered the commander. I'm sorry. You didn't often hear Root apologizing, but then it had been a deeply offensive insult. Butler was on monitors. Anything? Asked Artemis. Butler startled. He hadn't heard the young master come in. No, nothing. Once or twice I thought I saw a flicker, but it turned out to be nothing. Nothing is nothing, commented Artemis cryptically. Use the new camera. Butler nodded. Only last month, Master Fowl had purchased a cine camera over the internet. 2000 frames a second, recently developed by Industrial Light and Magic for specialized nature shoots, hummingbirds' wings and such. It processed images faster than a human eye could. Artemis had had it installed behind a cherub over the main entrance. Hello, Lolets! Welcome to the stream. We are kinda halfway through chapter 6 of the book right now. I hope you know the contents of the book, or at least don't mind spoilers too much. Yeah, that's the deal of this entire stream. Today's stream I'm reading Artemis Fowl, the very first book. Ah, no, you're not bothering. I'm literally reading for viewers, and well, if any arrive. So far you're the first to come, and I don't really mind the chat. But if you're willing to listen to me reading a book, I'm only would be happy for you to stay. Oh, well, we can pause it for a bit of little chat. How are you doing today? That's nice. Having a good day is basically the best we can have these days, I guess. I'm sorry, I don't know what to talk about. I'm doing good. a little bit worn out. Hey, welcome to the stream, Billy Eyelash. But yeah, I'm doing okay. My day went pretty well. It's technically coming to an end, so right now I'm streaming, reading the book. More or less so. Done 2 chapters already. Tomorrow will be a little bit busy day. Yeah, I do play games. I normally stream 3 times a week, and trying to post my schedule on Monday before I start streaming at least one day ahead before the first stream. Oh, yeah, sure. I guess we can try to talk about my favorite games. What to say? In the recent times, I've been playing a little bit of Risk of Rain 2. I had 2 stream run on this week and the week before that. I'm not very good at the game, but I'm at least having fun. Currently waiting for the upcoming DLC. Also, I have interest in A Hat in Time. I've cleared the story once, and right now they announced the new DLC for multiplayer, which is like hide-and-seek game, and I probably will be getting it. I want to try it out once it comes out. That should be upcoming Saturday. Oh. What games do you play? Brawlhalla, Duel Links, and more. I've heard about Brawlhalla. I'm not sure if I remember correctly. I think it's a fighting game? Something about wrestlers, I believe. Not sure about Duel Links, though. The name doesn't sound too familiar, sadly. Oh yeah, I also can say that I'm having a enjoying playing platformers, or more specifically Metroidvanias. Recently I had an entire stream series dedicated to playing Cave Story Plus. That was really fun. I've spent basically 24 hours and cleared the true ending. It took me a really long time to finish the final stage. But I enjoyed every moment of it. So maybe there will be other games like this on my streams in the future. One of the things, I've also played at Hollow Knight at some point, and right now I am simply patiently waiting for release of Silksong whenever that happens. Oh. Well, I'm here to talk, I don't mind, really. The stream was about reading a book, but I'm not having too many viewers to actually listen to me reading. At least not now, so if you people want to talk, I'm here to talk to you. I can't say that I can come and play with you right now, sadly. I'm not exactly set up for that. Didn't expect such an invitation today. But for idle chat, I am more than willing. It's okay. Thank you. One way or another, I'm still happy that you came to the stream and that I can at least a little bit interact with viewers. So, you said that there's more. Is there any specific genre that you like? Oh, that doesn't sound good. That sounds pretty serious. Is your dog okay? Kinda. Was it attacked by another dog? Got bitten in the neck and ear. That sounds kinda dangerous. Did you take it to the doctor? What did the doctor say? No, we don't really have doctors. Well, that's really bad. I'm kind of worried for your dog, and for you because you're worried about your dog. So, if something happens, you probably won't be very happy, and so am I. Well, I just hope that the bites aren't too serious, and your dog will have a swift recovery. Maybe hopefully it will be just a few days of rest, if everything is well. Didn't have time to see him. I had a really big homework. What do you mean you didn't have time to see him? Where is he now? He's outside nearby sleeping. So is he feeling well? If it was something serious, I would probably suggest that you would take him inside to stay in the house, so there wouldn't happen anything to his wounds. Or her, I don't exactly know what gender your dog is. So, please, sorry if I misgendered it. He's outside. Alright, you said it, that it's here. Well, I don't really know if it's too cold for me. Well, I don't know really don't really know. It's too cold for me to go outside. Well, Well, I guess there's not much for me to say here. He can't go in my house. My dad won't let him. That's really sad. But I guess I'm just going to hope for the best. That it's not too serious. It does sound a little bit cruel though. I'm really sorry to hear that you and your dog are in such situation. And I hope it all goes well. At least in the next few days, and everything will get resolved. He sheds a lot and his hair falls a lot, so that's why. I see. Well, still, I think that would be more like a slight inconvenience compared to keeping keeping your dog healthy and alive. If there was a life-threatening situation or wound caused by a bite, it might have been serious. Just brushing it off seems like not very. We were attacked by more dogs. I'm not even sure what to say at this point. I mean, yeah, I see. I guess I understand. Well, I just hope that your dog will be alright. Yeah, I guess that happens depending on locations. I'm not very familiar with situations like that. I had a dog at one time, but I'm living in a city, and whenever whenever I had to walk a dog, I would always be close by, so there was no case with dog attacks or anything. And there's not that much of our dogs outside. Besides, the dog I had was pretty big on itself, so she would rather protect me. I'm guessing that you live in a city of limits. Somewhere in a village, maybe. Pretty far away from any major city, so... Yeah, I don't think it's... I don't think that there is... And don't worry, he has a good house. Well... Yeah, I guess a good dog house is very important for comfort. Again, I'm living in a city-state, so it's not. I'm not exactly familiar with all the outside customs. Well, I hope you will check on them tomorrow, as the morning comes. You said to stop worrying. I'll try to read to study the whole day, and I still have homework. Oh, well, just spend like at least 5 times to attend to your dog, and you don't have to do much. You just need to make sure that he's okay. I'm pretty sure he will be glad to see that you care. But aside from that, the study is clearly a priority. I expect that you have to study on Monday, since you need to prepare for a whole day and it's really close. I don't know what time it is for you, but I will assume that you will be busy the entire Sunday, so you better not neglect that. Do not neglect education, it's important. It's very important for your future. Having knowledge of the world is something that is quite... how do I say this? You may know the basics from early school years. You may know the basics from kindergarten and understand the things required to survive, but expanding that knowledge and being able to use it is no less important. It may not be important daily, but it is a really important training for your head, for your brain, for your entire system that is doing calculations, working on imagination, giving you different ideas, providing you with solutions. If you don't feed it, eventually it will run dry and you just stop thinking productively. You will be doing all the same thing all over and over, and that won't get you far. So do not neglect study. If you still have more homework to be done for today, all while I'm really appreciating your presence here on my stream, I would suggest that you maybe do a little bit more to have a little bit less for tomorrow. You may have a little bit more free time to be with family. Yeah, but I understand that I need in life. Like... I'm sorry. You might not exactly need that specifically, but you might need an... how do I say this? You personally won't need that, but it's like heavy lifting, but for your brain. It's as if the brain is a muscle, and these numbers and the calculations you need to do with them are heavy lifting. Performing these calculations, learning how to perform them, and learning how to perform them efficiently is important, because your brain trains to use more of itself. It doesn't stale. It's the same as when reading classic literature or modern literature, like how I am reading Artemis Fowl right now. It's a practice that allows you to do certain things later on the fly. You may not always know when you will need it, but eventually it will come in handy. Just having a little bit of extra of brain muscle, even if you will be using a calculator to make all these calculations, if you will be understanding how to do it without calculator on paper, it still will be faster to then pull any tool and just do it. If you won't know, if you won't understand the principles, even calculator won't save you. No, sir. It's simple as that. Hey, thanks for follow. Also, hey, notifications work. Well, it was very nice talking to you. I'll follow. So see you again. I'm very tired. See ya. Bye. Have a good rest of the day. And thanks for the follow. Well, that was nice change of pace. I'm so glad that I had to talk to someone. I don't know if there's still anyone in the chat who wanted to talk to me. So, maybe I should return to reading. That was kind of an unexpected break, but let's continue. I really hope his dog is alright. He said not to worry, but I'm still worried, at least a little bit. Okay, so where did we stop? Nothing is nothing, commanded Artemis cryptically. Use the new camera. Butler nodded. Only last month, Master Fowl had purchased a cine camera over the internet, 2000 frames a second, recently developed by Industrial Light and Magic for specialized nature shoots, hummingbird swings, and such. It processed images faster than the human eye could. Artemis has had it installed behind a cherub over the main entrance. Butler activated the joypad. Where? Try the avenue. I have a feeling visitors are on the way. The manservant manipulated the toothpick-sized stick with his massive fingers. A live image sprang into life on the digital monitor. Nothing, muttered Butler, quiet as the grave. Artemis pointed to the control desk. Freeze it. Butler nearly questioned the order. Nearly. Instead, he held his tongue and pressed the pad. On screen, the cherry trees froze. Blossoms trapped in midair. More important, a dozen or so black-clad figures suddenly appeared on the avenue. What? Exclaimed Butler. Where did they spring from? We're shielded, explained Artemis. Vibrating at high speed. Too fast for the human eye to follow, but not for the camera, nodded Butler. Master Artemis, always 2 steps ahead. If only I could carry it around with me. If only. But we do have the next best thing. Artemis lifted a headset gingerly from the workbench. It was a remains of Holly's helmet. Obviously, trying to cram Butler's head into the original helmet would be like trying to fit a potato into a thimble. Only the visor and control buttons were intact. Scraps from a hard head had been rigged to fit the manservant's cranium. This thing is equipped with several filters. It stands to reason that one of them is anti-shield. Let's try it out, shall we? Artemis placed the set over Butler's ears. Obviously, with your eye span, there are going to be blind spots, but that shouldn't hamper you unduly. Now, run the camera. Butler set the camera rolling again, while Artemis slotted down one filter at an hour. Now? No. Now? Everything's gone red. Ultraviolet. No fairies. Now? No. Polaroid, I think. Last one, Butler smiled. A shark that has spotted a bear behind. Got him. Butler was seeing the world as it was, complete with ELP retrieval team sweeping the avenue. Said Artemis. Strobe variation, I would guess. Very high frequency. I see, fibbled Butler. Metaphorically or literally? His employer smiled. Exactly. Artemis shook himself. More jokes. Next thing he would be wearing clown shoes and turning cartwheels in the main hall. Very well, Butler. Time for you to do what you do best. They appear to have intruders in the grounds. Butler stood. No further instructions were necessary. He tightened the hard-cat straps, striding brusquely to the door. Oh, and Butler. Yes, Artemis? I prefer scared to death, if possible. Butler nodded. If possible. LAP Retrieval 1 were the best and the brightest. It was every little fairy's dream that one day he would grow up to don the stealth black jumpsuit of the Retrieval Commandos. These were the elites. Trouble was their middle name. In the case of Captain Kelp, Trouble was actually his first name. He'd insisted on it at his manhood ceremony, having just been accepted into the academy. Trouble led his team down the sweeping avenue. As usual, he took the point position himself, determined to be the first into the fray if fervently hoped, a fray developed. Check in, he whispered into the mic that would snake-like form his helmet. Negative on 1. Nothing, Captain. A big negatory trouble. Captain Kelp winced. We're in the field, Corporal, for a procedure. But Mommy said... I don't care what Mommy said, Corporal. Rank is rank. You will refer to me as Captain Kelp. Yes, sir, Captain, sulked the Corporal. But don't ask me to iron your tunic anymore. Trouble zeroed in on his brother's channel, shutting out the rest of the squad. Shut up about Mommy, will you? And the ironing. You're only on this mission because I requested you. Now start acting like a professional or get back to the perimeter. Okay, drops. Trouble! Shouted Captain Kelp. It's trouble. Not drops. Not drop. Trouble. Okay? Okay. Trouble. Mommy's right. You're only a baby. Swearing very unprofessionally, Captain Kelp switched his headset back to the open channel. He was just in time to hear an unusual sound. What was that? What? Dunno. Nothing, Captain. But Trouble had done a sound recognition in Silas for his captain exam, and he had pretty sure that arc has been caused by someone getting a chop across a windpipe. More than likely, his brother had walked into a shrub. Grab, are you alright? That's Corporal Grab to you. Kelp viciously kicked a daisy. Check in. Sound off in sequence. 1, okay. 2, fine. 3, bored but alive. 5, approaching West Wing. Kelp froze. Wait. 4? You there. 4. What's your situation? Nothing except static. Right. 4 is down. Possibly an equipment malfunction. Still, we can't afford to take any chances. Regroup by the main door. The Retrieval 1 crept together, making slightly less noise than a silk spider. Kelp did a quick head count. 11. 1 short of a full complement. 4 was probably wandering around the rose bushes, wondering why nobody was talking to him. When Trouble noticed 2 things. 1. A pair of black boots was sticking out of a shrub beside the door, and 2. There was a massive human standing in the doorway. The figure was cradling a very nasty-looking gun in the crook of his arm. Go silent, whispered Kelp, and immediately 11 full-face wizards slid down to seal in the sound of his squad's briefing and communications. Now, nobody panic. I think I can trace the sequence of events here. 4 is sulking around outside the door. The madman opens it. 4 gets a whack on the noggin and lands in the bushes. No problem. Our cover is intact. Repeat, intact. So no itchy fingers, please. Corporal Kelp. Check 4's vitals. The rest of you make a hole and keep it quiet. The squad stepped back carefully until they standing on a manicured grassy verge. The figure before them was indeed impressive, without doubt the biggest human any of them had ever seen. Tablets! Breathed 2. Maintain radio silence except in emergencies, ordered Kelp. Swearing is hardly an emergency. Secretly, however, he concurred with his sentiment. This was one time he was glad to be shielded. That man looked as if he could squash half a dozen fairies in one massive fist. Rab returned to his slot. Poor stable. Concussed, I'd guessed. But otherwise okay. His shield's off though, so I stopped him in the bushes. Well done, Corporal. Got thinking. The last thing we needed was for force boots to be spotted. The man moved, lumbering casually along the path. He may have glanced left or right. It was difficult to tell beneath the hood pulled over his eyes. Odd for a human to wear a hood on such a fine night. Safety catches off. Ordered Trouble. He imagined his men rolling their eyes, like we hadn't had their safe ties off for the last half an hour. Still, you had to go by the book, in case of a tribunal later on. There was a time when retrieval blasted first and answered questions never, but not anymore. Now there was also always a do-gooders civilian banging on about civil rights, even for humans, if you can believe it. The man mountain stopped, right in the middle of a squad. If he had been able to see them, it would be a perfect tactical position. Their own firearms were virtually useless, as they would probably do more damage to each other than the human. Fortunately, the entire squad was invisible, with the exception of 4 who was safely hidden in what appeared to be a rhododendron. Buzz buttons. Fire them up. Just in case. No harm in being cautious. And when an LLP officer were switching weapons, right at the moment when their hands were fumbling with holsters, that's when the mudman spoke. Evening, gentlemens, he said, sweeping back his hood. Funny that, thought Trouble. It's almost as if when he saw the makeshift goggles. Cover! He screamed. Cover! But it was too late. No option but to stand and fight. And that was no option at all. The butler could have taken them from the parapet, one at a time with the ivory hunter's rifle, but that wasn't the plan. This was all about making an impression, sending a message. It was standard procedure with any police force in the world to send in the cannon fodder first before opening negotiations. It was almost expected that we would meet with resistance, and Butler was happy to oblige. He peeked out through the letterbox and, oh happy coincidence, there was a pair of googled eyes peeking right back at him. It was just too fortuitous to pass up. Bedtime, said Butler, heaving the door with a mighty shoulder. The fairy flew several feet before aligning in the shrubbery. Juliet would be devastated. She loved rhododendrons. One down, several to go. Butler pulled up the peaked hood of his field jacket, stepping into the porch. There we were, spread out like a squadron of action men. If not for the array of very professional-looking weaponry hanging from each belt, it would have been almost comical. Sliding his finger casually under the trigger guard, Butler strode into their midst. The bulky one at 2 o'clock was giving the orders. You could tell from the heads angled his way. The leader gave a command and the squad switched to close quarters weapons. It made sense. They would only cut themselves to pieces with firearms. Time for actions. Evening, gentlemen, Butler said. He couldn't help it, and it was worth it for that one moment of concentration. Then his gun was up and blazing. Captain Kelp was the first casualty. A titanium-tipped dart puncturing the neck of his suit. He bent down sluggishly, and though the air had turned to water, 2 more of the squad were dropped before we had any idea what's going on. It must be quite traumatic, though, Butler dispassionately, to lose an advantage that you've held for centuries. By now, the remains of the Trivial One had the buzz batons fired up and raised. But we made the mistake of hanging back, waiting for a command that was not forthcoming. This gave Butler an opportunity to take the fight to them, as, as, if, as if he needed another advantage. Even so, for a second, the manservant hesitated. These beings were so small, like children. Then, Grob clipped him on the elbow with his buzz baton, and 1,000 volts spread across Butler's chest. All sympathy for the little people vanished instantly. Butler grabbed the offending baton, swinging weapon, and beard like a set of bolas. Grob squealed as he was released, his newfound momentum carrying him directly into the three of his comrades. Butler continued the swinging motion, driving punishing punches into the chest of 2 more fairies. Another clambered onto his back, stinging him repeatedly with the baton. Butler fell on him. Something cracked, and the stinging stopped. Suddenly, there was a barrel under his chin. One of retrieval had managed to get his weapon cocked. "Freeze, mudbot," droned a helmet-filtered voice. It was a serious-looking gun. Liquid coolant bubbled along its length. "Just give me a reason." Butler rolled his eyes. Different race, same magic chess. He slapped the fairy open-handed. To the little man, it must have been like the sky falling on his head. "That reason enough for you?" Butler scrambled to his feet. Fairy bodies were scattered around him in various stages of shock and unconsciousness. Scared, definitely. Dead, probably not. Mission accomplished. One little guy was faking, though. You could tell by the way his tiny knees knocked together. Butler picked him up by the neck, finger and thumb easily meeting around the back. "Name?" Corporal Kelp." "Well, Corporal, you tell your commander that the next time I see armed forces coming in here, we will be picked off by sniper rifle. No darts either. Armor-piercing bullets." "Yes, sir. Sniper fire, got it. Seems fair." "Good. You are, however, permitted to remove your injured." "Most generous of you. But if I see so much as the twinkle of a weapon on any of the medics, I might be tempted to detonate a few of the mines I have planted in the ground." Grubb swallowed, his pallor increasing behind the visor. "Unarmed medics. Crystal clear." Butler set the fairy down, brushing his tunic with massive fingers. "Now, final thing. Listening?" Fairy's nods. "I want a negotiator. Someone who can make decisions. Not some no-ranker who has to run off back to base after every demand. Understood?" "Fine, that is, I'm sure it will be fine. Unfortunately, I'm one of those no-rankers, so you see, I can't actually guarantee it will be fine." Butler was sorely tempted to drop-kick this little fellow back to his camp. "Very well, I understand. Just shut up." Rob almost agreed that he clamped his mouth shut and nodded. "Good. Now, before you go, collect all weapons and helmets and make a little pile right here." Grubb took a deep breath. "Oh well, may as well go out a hero. I can't do that." "Oh really? And why not?" Grubb drew himself up to his full height. "An LLP officer never relinquishes his weapon." Butler nodded. "Fair enough, though I would ask." "Off you go then." Hardly able to believe his luck, Grubb scurried back towards the command tower. He was the last fairy standing. Trouble was snorting in the gravel, but he, Grubb Kelp, had faced down the mud monster. Wait until Mommy heard about this. Holly sat on the edge of her bed, fingers curled around the metal base. She lifted slowly, taking the weight of her arms. Bestrained tried to pop her elbows from their sockets. She held it to us for a second and then slammed the frame into the concrete. A satisfying cloud of dust and splinters swirled around her knees. "Good," she grunted. Holly eyed the camera. Doubtless they were watching her. No time to waste. She flexed her fingers, repeating the maneuver again and again until the steel base left deep beds in the finger joints. With each impact, more and more splinters popped from the fresh floor. After several moments, the cell door burst open and Juliet fell into the room. "What are you doing?" she panted. "Trying to knock the house down?" "I'm hungry," shouted Holly, "and I'm fed up of waving at the stupid camera. Don't you feed your prisoners around here? I want some food." Juliet's fingers curled into a fist. Artemis had warned her to be civil, but there was a limit. "No need to get your pant or whatever in a twist." "So what do you fairies eat?" "Got any dolphin?" Holly asked sarcastically. Juliet shrugged. "No, I don't think, you beast." "Fruit then, or vegetables. Make sure they're washed. I don't want any of your chemical potions in my blood." "Ha ha, what a riot you are." "Don't worry. All you produce is grown all our produce is grown naturally." Juliet passed on her way to the door. "And don't you go forgetting the rules. Not trying to escape from the house, and there's no need to break out the furniture either. Don't make me demonstrate my full Nelson." As soon as Juliet's footsteps had faded, Holly began smashing the bed into the concrete. That was the thing about fairy bonds. The instructions had to be given eye to eye, and they had to be very precise. Just saying there was no need to do a thing wasn't specific forbidding an elf to do it. And another thing, Holly had no intention of escaping from the house. That wasn't to say that she didn't mean to get out of her cell. Artemis had added yet another monitor to the bank. This one was linked to a camera in Angeline's foul attic room. He spared a moment to check on his mother. Sometimes it bothered him having a camera in her room. It seemed almost like spying, but it was for her own good. There was always a danger that she could hurt herself. At the moment she was sleeping peacefully, having swallowed the sleeping pill that Juliet had left on her tray. All part of the plan. A vital part. Butler entered the control room. He was clutching a fistful of fairy hardware and rubbing his neck. Tricky little blighters. Artemis looked up from the monitor bank. "Any problems?" "Nothing major. These little batons pack quite a punch, though." "How's our prisoner?" "Fine. Juliet is getting her something to eat. I'm afraid Captain Short is going a bit stir crazy." On the screen, Holly was smashing her cut into the concrete. "It's understandable," nodded the manservant. "Imagine her frustration. I'm not as if she can tunnel her way out." Artemis smiled. "No, the entire estate is built on a bed of limestone. Not even a dwarf could tunnel his way out of here. Or in." "Wrong, as it happened. Dead wrong." A landmark moment for Artemis Fowl. The LEP had procedures for emergencies like this one. Admittedly, this did not include the retrieval squad getting hammered by a lone enemy. Still, that just made the next step all the more urgent, especially with the faintest of orange things creeping into the sky. "Are we good to go?" roared Root in his mic, although it wasn't whisper sensitive. "Good to go," thought Folly, bossy wiring the last dish on a watchtower. These military types and their catchphrases. "Good to go," "lock and load," "I don't know, but I've been told." So insecure. Aloud he said, "No need to shout, Commander. These headsets could pick up a spider scratching in Madagascar." "And is there a spider scratching in Madagascar?" "Well, I don't know. We can't really—" "Well, stop changing the subject, Folly, and answer the question." The centaur scowled. The commander took everything so literally. He plugged the dish modem LED into his laptop. "Okay, we're good to go." "About time too. Right, flip the switch." For the third time in as many moments, Foley gritted his horsey teeth. He was indeed the stereotypical unappreciated genius. "Flick the switch, if you don't mind." Root didn't have the cranial capacity to appreciate that he was trying to do here. Stopping time wasn't just a matter of pressing the on button. There was a series of delicate procedures that had to be performed with utmost precision. Otherwise, the stop zone could end up as just so much ash and radioactive slop. While it was true that fairies had been stopping time for millennia, these days, with satellite communicator and the internet, humans were liable to notice if a zone just dropped out of time for a couple of hours. There was an age when you could throw a blanket stoppage over a whole country and the mud people would simply think the gods were angry. But not anymore. Nowadays, the humans had instruments for measuring anything. So if there was any time stopping to be done, it had better be fine-tuned and precise. In the old days, 5 elven warlocks would form a pentagram around the target and spread a magic shield over it, temporarily stopping time inside the enhanced enclosure. This was fine as far as it went, provided the warlocks didn't have to use the bathroom. Many a side was lost because an elf had one glass of wine too many. Warlocks tire quickly too, and their arms get sore. On a good day, you had maybe an hour and a half, which was hardly worth the trouble in the first place. It was Lyss's idea to mechanize the whole procedure. He had the warlocks do their thing into lithium batteries and then set up a network of receiver dishes around the designated area. Sounds simple? Well, it wasn't. But there were definitely advantages. For one thing, there were no more power surges. Batteries didn't try to show off to each other. You could calculate exactly how many power cells were needed, and surges could be extended for up to 8 hours. As it happened, the Fowl Estate was the perfect location for a time stop. Isolated with a definite boundary. It even had elevated towers for the dishes, for heaven's sake. It was almost as if Artemis Fowl wanted it to be time stopped. Foley fingers hesitated over the button. Could it be possible? After all, the human youth had been one step ahead throughout the whole affair. Commander, are we online yet? Not exactly. There's something. That reaction nearly blew out the feathers of Foley's earpiece. No, Foley, there isn't something. None of your bright ideas, thank you very much. Captain Short's life is in danger. Now push the button before I climb the tower and push it with your face. Touch it, muttered Foley and pushed the button. Lieutenant Kitchen checked his moon meter. You have 8 hours. I know how much time I have, growled Root. And stop following me. Don't you have work to do? Actually, now that you mentioned it, I have a beer bomb to arm. Root rounded on him. Don't annoy me, Lieutenant. Don't annoy me, Lieutenant. Having you make comments at every turn is not improving my concentration. Just do whatever it is you feel you have to do, but be prepared to back it up at tribunal. If this one goes wrong, heads are going to roll. Indeed, muttered Kajan under his breath, but mine is not going to be one of them. Rod checked the sky. A shimmering azure field had descended over the Fowl's estate. Good. They were in limbo. Outside the walls, life continued at an exaggerated pace, but if anyone were to somehow gain access to the manor, in spite of the fortified walls and high gate, they could find it deserted, all occupants trapped in the past. So, for the next 8 hours, it would be twilight on the Fowl estate. After that, Root could not guarantee Holly's safety. Given the gravity of the situation, it was more than likely that Kajam could get the go-ahead to bomb the whole place. Root had seen a blue rains before. No living thing escaped, not even the rats. Root kept up with a Foley at the base of the North Tower. The centaur had parked a shuttle by the 3-foot thick wall. Already, the work area was a mess of tangled wires and pulsating fiber optics. Foley, are you in there? The centaur's foil-capped head emerged from the belly of disemboweled hard drive. Over here, Commander. You've come to push a button with my face, I presume. Root almost laughed. Don't tell me you're looking for an apology, Folly. I've already used my quota for today, and that was to a lifelong friend. Kajan, forgive me, Commander, but I wouldn't waste my apologies on a lieutenant. He won't be wasting any on you when he stabs you in the back. You're wrong about him. Kajan is a good officer, a bit eager certainly, but he will do the right thing when the time comes. The right thing for himself, maybe. I don't think Holly is at the top of his priority list. Rod didn't answer. He couldn't. And another thing. I have a sneaking suspicion that young Artemis Fowl wanted us to stop time. After all, everything else we've tried had played straight into his hands. Root rubbed his temples. That's impossible. How could a human know about time stoppage? Anyway, this is no time for terrorizing, Folly. I have less than 8 hours to clean up this mess. So what have you got for me? Folly clopped over and equipped a rack clamped to the wall. No heavy armaments, that's for sure. Not after what happened to Retrieval 1. No helmet either. That beast of a madman seems to collect them. No. To show good faith, we're going to send you in unarmed and unarmored. Roots nodded. What manual did you get this from? It's standard operating procedure. Fostering trust speeds communication. Oh, stop quoting and give me something to shoot. Suit yourself, sighed Foley, selecting what looked like a finger from the rack. What's that? It's a finger. What does it look like? A finger? Admitted Root. Yes, but not any ordinary finger. He glanced around to make sure that no one else was watching. The tip contains a pressurized dart. One shot only. You tap the knuckle with your thumb and someone goes Betty bye. Why haven't I seen this before? It's a covert kind of thing. And, said Rhodes suspiciously, well, there have been accidents. Tell me, Foley. Our agents keep forgetting they have it on. Meaning, they shoot themselves. Foley nodded miserably. One of our best spies was picking his nose at the time. 3 days on the critical list. Rhodes rolled the memory latex onto his index finger. There it immediately assumed the shape and fresh tone of the host digit. Don't worry, Foley, I'm not a complete idiot. Anything else? Foley unhooked what appeared to be a false bottom from the equipment rack. You're not serious. What does that do? Nothing, admitted the centaur, but it gets a great laugh at parties. Rod chuckled. Twice. That was a major lapse for him. Okay, levity over. Are you going to wire me? Naturally. One iris scan. What color? He peered into the command's eyes. Mud brown. He selected a small vial from the shelf and removed the electronic contact lens from a fluid capsule. Plucking Rod's eyelid with thumb and forefinger, he slotted in the iris scan. That might irritate you. Try not to rub, or it could end up in the back of your eye. Then we would be looking into your head, and there's nothing interesting in there. Heavens no. Rod blinked, raising the edge to knit his watering eye. That's it? Wholly nodded. That's all we dare risk. The commander agreed reluctantly. His hip felt very light without a 3-barreled blaster dangling from it. Okay, I suppose this amazing dart finger will have to do. Honestly, Foley, if this blows up in my face, you will be on the next shuttle back to heaven. Santa's snickers. Just be careful in the toilet. Red didn't laugh. There were some things you didn't joke about. My neck. Artemis's watch had stopped. It was as though Greenwich wasn't there anymore. Or perhaps, mused Artemis, we're the ones who have disappeared. He checked in. CNN. It had frozen. A picture of Riscan jittered slightly on the screen. Artemis could not hold back a satisfied smile. We had done it, just like the book said. The LAP had stopped time, all according to plan. Time to check out a theory. Artemis wheeled over to the monitor bank and punched up the mem cam on the 28-inch main monitor. Angeline Fowl was no longer on the chase launch. Artemis planned around the room. It was empty. His mother had gone. Disappeared. His smile widened. Perfect. Just as he'd suspected. Artemis switched his attention to Holy Short. She was banging the bed again. Occasionally she would rise from the mattress, pounding the wall with the bare fists. Maybe it was more than frustration. Could there be method in her madness? He tapped the monitor with a slim finger. What are you up to, Captain? What's your little plan? He was distracted by a moment of the Avenue monitor. At last, deep breathed, the game began. A figure was advancing down the avenue. Small, but imposing nonetheless, unshielded too. Finished play acting then. Artemis punched the intercom button. Butler, we have a guest. I will show him in. You get back here and police the surveillance cameras. Butler's voice came back tinny through the speaker. 10-4 Artemis, on my way. Artemis buttoned his designer jacket, pausing at the mirror to straighten his tie. The trick to negotiation was to hold all the cards going in, and even if you didn't, to try to look as though you did. Artemis put on his best sinister face. Evil, he told himself, evil but highly intelligent. And determined, don't forget determined. He put a hand on the door knob. Steady now, deep breaths, and try not to think about the possibility that you have misjudged the situation and are about to be shot dead. 1, 2, 3. He opened the door. Good evening, he said. Every inch the gracious host, albeit a sinister, evil, intelligent, and determined one. Ruth stood on the doorstep, palms up, the universal gesture for, look, I'm not carrying a big murderous weapon. You're Fowl? Artemis Fowl, at your service. And you're? LAP Commander Ruth. Right, we know each other's names, so could we get on with this? Certainly. Ruth decided to chance taking out his weapon. Step outside then, where I can see you. Artemis' face hardened. Have you learned nothing from your my demonstration? The ship? You'll command this? Do I need to kill someone? No, said Ruth hurriedly. You only meant to lure me outside where I could be snatched and used to trade. Please, Commander Ruth, raise your game or send someone intelligent. Ruth felt the blood pump through his cheeks. Now you just listen to me, you young. Artemis smiled in command again. Not very good negotiation techniques, Commander, to lose your cool before we even get to the table. Ruth took several deep breaths. Fine. Whatever you say. Where would you prefer to conduct our talks? Inside, of course. You have my permission to enter, but remember, Captain Short's life is in your hands. Be careful with it. Ruth followed his host down the vaulted hallway. Generations of fowls flared down at him from classical portraits. They passed through a stained oak doorway to a long conference room. There were 2 places set at the round table, complete with pads, ashtrays, and water jugs. Ruth was delighted to see the ashtrays and immediately pulled a hell-chewed cigar from his vest. Maybe you're not such a barbarian after all, he grunted, exhaling a huge cloud of green smoke. The commander ignored the water jugs, instead pouring himself a shot of something purple from a hip flask. He drank deeply, belched, and sat. Ready? Artemis stuffed his nuts like a news anchor. Here's the situation as I see it. I have the means to expose your subterranean existence, and you are powerless to stop me. So basically, whatever I ask for is a small price to pay. Ruth spat out a shred of fungus tobacco. So you think you can just pull all the information out over the internet? Well, not immediately, not with a time stop in effect. Ruth choked on a lungful of smoke. Their ace in the hole. Gone. Well, if you know about the time stop, you must also know that you are completely cut off from the outside world. You are, in effect, powerless. Artemis jotted a note on the pad. Let's save some time here. I grow wary of your clumsy bluffs. In the case of an abduction, an LEP will first send a crack retrieval team to get back what has been lost. You had done so. Excuse me while I titter. Crack team? Honestly, a Cub Scout patrol armed with water pistols could have defeated them. Ruth fumed silently, taking out his anger on his cigar butt. The next official step is negotiation. And finally, when the 8-hour time limit is about to run out, and if no solution can be reached, a biobomb is detonated, constrained by the time field. You appear to know an awful lot about us, Master Fowl. I don't suppose you will tell me how? Correct. Root mashed the remains of his cigar into the crystal ashtray. So, let's have it. What are your demands? One demand. Singular. Artemis slid his notepad across the polished table. Root read what was written there. 1 ton of 24-karat gold. Small, unmarked ingots only. You can't be serious. Oh, but I am. Root sat forward in his chair. Don't you see your position is untenable? Either you give us back Captain Short, or we will be forced to kill you all. There is no middle ground. We don't negotiate, not really. I'm just here to explain the facts to you. Artemis smiled his vampire smile. Oh, but you will negotiate with me, Commander. Oh, really? And what makes you so special? I am special because I know how to escape the time field. Impossible, shouted Root. Can't be done. Oh, yes it can. Trust me, I haven't been wrong yet. Root tore off the top page, folding it into his pocket. I will have to think about this. Take your time. We have 8 hours. Oh, excuse me, 7.5 hours. Then time's up for everybody. Rod said nothing for a long while, tapping his nails on the tabletop. He took a breath to speak, then changed his mind and stood up abruptly. We'll be in touch, don't worry. I will see myself out. Artemis pushed his chair back. You do that, but remember this. None of your race has permission to enter here while I'm alive. Ruth stalked down the hallway, glaring back at the oil paintings. Better to leave now and process this new information. The foul boy was indeed a slippery opponent, but he was making one basic mistake. The assumption that Ruth would play by the rules. However, Julius Ruth hadn't gotten his commander's stripes by following any rule book. Time for a bit of unorthodox action. The videotape from Ruth's iris camera was being reviewed by experts. You see there, said Professor Camillus, a behavioral specialist. That twitch. He's lying. Nonsense, huffed Dr. Argon, a psychologist from below the United States. He's itchy, that's all. He's itchy, so he scratches. Nothing sinister in it. Cumulus turned to Foley. Listen to him. How can I be expected to work with this charlatan? Witch doctor, countered Argon. Foley raised his hairy paws. Gentlemen, please. We need agreement here. I can't create profile. It's no use, said Argon. I can't work in these conditions. Cumulus folded his arms. If we can't work, neither can I. Ruth stood through the shuttle double doors. His trademark purple complexion has even rosier than usual. That human is toying with us. I will not have it. Now, what did our experts make of the tape? Foley moved slightly to the side, allowing the commander a clear run at the so-called experts. Apparently, they can't work in these conditions. Ruth's eyes narrowed to slits, slinging his prey into a sharp focus. Excuse me? The good doctor is a half-wit, said Camillus, unfamiliar with the commander's temper. I'm the half-wit? Shuddered Argonne, equally ignorant. What about you, you cave fairy? Plastering your absurd interpretations onto the most innocent of gestures. Innocent? The boy is a bag of nerves. Obviously lying. It's textbook. Ruth slammed a clenched fist into the table, sending a spiderweb of cracks scurrying across the surface. Silence! A silencer was. Instantly. Now, you two experts are on a handsome retainers for your profiling work. Correct? The pair nodded, afraid to speak in case they spoke the silence rule. This is probably the case of your lives, so I want you to concentrate very hard. Understood? More nods. Ruth popped the camera out of his weeping eye, fast-forwarded Floaty toward the end. The tape hopped forward erratically. On screen, Ruth followed the human into his conference room. There, stop it there. Can you zoom in on his face? Can I zoom in on his face? Snorted Foley. Can a dwarf steal a web from under a spider? Yes, replied Ruth. That was a rhetorical question, actually. I don't need a grammar lesson, Foley. Just zoom in, would you? Foley ground his tombstone teeth. Okay, boss, will do. The centaur's finger prodded the keyboard with lightning speed. Artemis' visage grew to fill the plasma screen. I would advise you to listen, said Ruth, squeezing the expert's shoulders. This is a pivotal moment in your careers. I am special, said the mouth on the screen, because I can escape the time field. Now tell me, said Ruth, is he lying? Run it again, said Cumulus. Show me the eyes. Argon nodded. Yes, just eyes. Foley tapped a few more keys and Artemis' deep blue eyes expanded to the width of the screen. I am special, boomed the human voice, because I can escape a time field. Well, is he lying? Cumulus and Argon looked at each other, all traces of antagonism gone. No, they said simultaneously. He's telling the truth, added the behaviorist, or classified as psychologist. At least he thinks he is. Ruth swabbed his eyes with a cleansing solution. That's what I thought. When I looked that human in the face, I figured he was either a genius or crazy. Artemis' cool eyes glared at them from the screen. So which is it? Asked Foley. A genius or a crazy? Ruth grabbed him his 3-barreled blaster from the gun rack. What's the difference? He snapped, stabbing his trusty weapon to his hip. Get me an outside line to E1. This foul person seems to know all for our rules, so it's time to break a few. Well, and that's the end of chapter 6. We are online today for 3 hours 20 minutes. I would say that that's quite a record. So we managed to cover 3 more chapters of the book today, and that means that we still have 3 more for the next stream. The action is about to unravel, and we might have some interesting action to watch at, or like listen to, hear, read. I'm sorry, but yeah, we are getting to the most action-filled parts. Although there was already some action, Butler demonstrated that he is quite skilled and worthy of his name as a manservant of the most sinister boy in the story, I suppose. So that means will likely be third and last just chatting stream where I will be reading this book. And it will be, as usual, announced on my Twitter. I will have an announcement with weekly schedule ready by Monday, or at least 24 hours before the first stream of the week. Before that, I would like to make actual vocabulary announcement. Aside from the book, I can currently tell that the first stream of the week won't be exactly what I usually stream. It won't be gaming, it probably won't be chatting or reading. Today, or like right now, it's already past 5 weeks of me streaming straight. So that's basically past the first month of streaming. It's sadly due to the results I'm currently having. It might not be a conclusion of Take Flight stream series, but I would like to discuss on the first stream of the week what information I gained and what I'm possibly gonna be doing in the future with the channel and entire Vtuber and streaming deal. Hopefully there will be more people online, because it will be a discussion to see what I can improve on my streams, because I'm actually don't feel like I'm doing super great. We need to get proof points as of what was seemingly done right, what potentially was done wrong, and what can be done to improve both the stream's quality and gain the interest of the viewers, which is you. What kind of content I might be concentrated for the upcoming months and everything like that. So please wait for announcement, where probably be stream either on Monday or Tuesday. You will be informed. Potentially, the best decision is to watch over my Twitter page. That's where it will be posted. I will set up a calendar on Twitch, and streams will be also coming on YouTube. And as usual, you can simply subscribe and have stream notifications coming in as I will start streaming. Either way, I really appreciate anyone who visited today's stream. Even if you were silent, I'm still happy you've been interested to listen to me reading a book. That's kinda a big deciding factor if I will continue doing it, because, well, I enjoy it. One of the points I still need to work on is making audience, so there would be people who would be interested to listen. There's a little point in reading a book if there's no one to read it to, right? So, at this point, I will be concluding the stream, and hey, thanks for the follow, how do I read it? Jevons. I hope I read it right. Either way, thanks for follow, Jeff. Okay, thanks, Jeff. So, yeah, at this point, I will be concluding the stream, and I hope to see you on the next week. Until then, have a good day, the rest of the day, or if it's evening for you, I read books too. I've learned to just read anyway, regardless of if there's an audience or not. All the best. That's true, that's true. Reading the book for yourself is actually really nice, regardless if there is someone to read it to. But I don't know, I want to kind of spread the literature. So, yeah. a little bit off track. I was saying goodbye. What? Yeah. Anyways, thanks for visiting my stream. I will hope I get more views afterwards because I keep the recording up for 2 weeks. Bye. Goodbye. So, anyways, thanks for visiting my stream. I hope to see you next week. Have a good remainder of the day, or a good evening, or good night. It really all depends on your time zone. And goodbye. Until next time.